Tonight, you're not just stepping onto a medieval battlefield, you're floundering in the mud at dawn with the thunder of hooves rattling your bones. You open your eyes to a sky the colour of bruised plums, each cloud heavy with unshed rain. The air tastes like cold iron and damp leather. You can almost feel the ghosts of last night's campfire smoke tickling your nostrils. Somewhere off to your left, a horn, some poor soul's embouchure taxed beyond mercy, blasts a low, pregnant note that vibrates through your very teeth. It sounds less like a call to arms and more like a man protesting his own mortgage. You want to roll over, feel the reassuring warmth of a mattress, but instead you're face down in clay and oats, chain mail chafing your ribs like a jealous sibling. As you force yourself upright, the full panorama unfolds, rows of knights and foot soldiers awakening with the reluctant grace of newborn calves. Each man is a smear of mud and metal, eyes squinting against the gloom. You might be tempted to think of them as a single churning mass, an army without faces, but no. Every figure here carries a distinct story beneath his helm. There's Arvid, the awkward teenage squire trying not to soil his tunic as he fumbles with a pike twice his height. There's Brenna, the hardened mercenary who chewed through 3 loaves of black bread before dawn, and still seems lean as a hawk. Around you, the camp stirs like a living creature. Tents sag under the weight of last night's dew. A lone dog weaves between booted legs, nose twitching for scraps. Horses, half shrouded in blankets of canvas, stamp impatiently, clouds of breath blooming in the chill. The smell of boiled oats mingles with the pungent tang of worn leather and something else, something feral and ferrous that sets your pulse jangling. War is coming, and it smells nothing like the perfumed tales you heard in your lord's great hall. The commander's voice cuts through the haze, a rough-hewn commandment delivered in a tone that brooks no argument. You catch fragments. Advance, flank, not a foot backward. It all blurs into the same clangorous promise. Chaos. In the distance you see banners bobbing like sick flags in a storm-tossed sea. They bear symbols you recognise. A serpent coiled around a chalice, a ram's head crowned in steel. These emblems whisper of rival ambitions and settling of debts older than the oldest monk's vow. You break rank on shaky legs and head for the latrine tent, where the wooden planks creak under your weight. Steam drifts from troughs where men relieve their dread, gravitationally pulled by the drumbeat in their skulls. The sounds echo, pitched somewhere between relief and regret. For a brief second, you wonder what life would have been like if you'd chosen the monastery instead. Quiet chant, candlelight flickering on vellum pages. But then a leathersmith's hammer rings nearby, and the absurdity of scholarly peace vanishes like mist at sunrise. Stepping back into the open, you rub at a bruise blossoming across your forearm, a souvenir from yesterday's drilling session. Your fingers trace the pattern of interlocking rings, each one welded in rough smithy heat. The craftsmanship is proud but utilitarian. This mail wasn't made for parades in stone courtyards, but for living in, marching in, fighting in. You stretch your shoulders, testing the weight of your sword's hilt. The pommel feels cold as your own blood, and you're suddenly aware of every bead of sweat behind your ears. To your right, a merchant's wagon, a lumbering contraption of battered oak and rusted iron, jostles into position. Its canvas cover bears the faded emblem of a spice trader who once sailed the Mediterranean, dreaming of cinnamon and saffron fields. Now he's here, unloading barrels of salted pork and jugs of cloudy ale. He grumbles in a dialect thick as porridge. Would have been richer on the docks, but there's coin in soldiers' stomachs. You give him a sideways glance, his teeth are stained from years of cheap wine, but in his eyes there's the keen glint of opportunity. A peal of thunder rolls over the ridge, and for a moment the world is silent, if only the calm before the storm could last. You catch a flicker of lightning arcing across the horizon, illuminating rows of tasselled lances and campfires, winking awake like fireflies. The ground beneath your boots vibrates with the collective heartbeat of thousands of souls poised on the knife edge of violence. As the light dims and the horn sounds again, you draw a slow breath. The air is impossibly thick now, charged with moments yet to unfold. Somewhere in the melee, a trumpeter's call will sound the charge. There will be a clash of steel and a cloud of arrowheads, and each thread of destiny, peasant and prince alike, will be rewoven on the loom of war. But here, in this charged dawn, you stand at the threshold of history, toes curled in mud, senses alive to every note of dread and promise. Before we dive back in, let me know where you're listening from. If this journey chills you in the best way, subscribe. Tomorrow I have another story for you. At sunrise's full bloom, you step beyond the battlefield's muddy fringe and into the makeshift village that has sprung up like mushrooms in the afterglow of war preparations. Stalls of battered wood and patched leather stall cloth line a winding lane of churned earth, each one hawking goods for the coming clash. The air is a swirling tapestry of scents, the acrid bite of curing salts on strips of bacon, the heady sweetness of spiced wine warming in earthen jugs, and the smoky tang of freshly carved oak beams smouldering in small hearths. Your boots sink with a soft plop as you weave past a scribe's booth, where flickering lamplight gleams on vellum scrolls as delicate as butterfly wings. The scribe himself, a spectacled man whose ink-stained fingers dance like spiders on the parchment, looks up and offers you a brief nod. Behind him, impeccably handwritten rolls bear the names of every soldier bound for the field, peasant levies, knights, crossbowmen, each one inked in contrasting strokes to denote rank and obligation. You pause at a merchant's table where leather pouches jostle in neat rows. Their owner, a rotund woman named Marga, lifts one and shakes it with a conspiratorial grin. The coins inside chime like distant bells. She boasts that a well-placed bribe could spare a squire a beating or secure a mercenary's loyalty when the flanks collapse. You laugh at her audacity, but beneath that mirth, a pang of truth stirs. Allegiances in war can be as mercurial as the morning mist. As a rowdy troop of minstrels barrels past, their lutes and tambourines clattering in a raucous melody. They sing bawdy ballads of past victories, some real, some embroidered until fact and fiction blur, while a lanky jongleur in faded motley juggles flaming torches. The crowd around them ebbs and flows like a tide, villagers and soldiers alike drawn into the carnival for respite from the looming violence. You catch snatches of a verse about a general who drank 7 shots of brandy and led a cavalry charge in his underpants, an anecdote so ludicrous it could only have survived centuries in whispered tavern gossip. Beyond the stalls, a line of tented infirmaries stands sentinel. Crude shelters of patched canvas and wooden stakes provide scant solace to the wounded and sick. You inhale the bitter aroma of herbs boiled in water, yarrow, comfrey, meant to staunch wounds, though often mixed with bitter gall to test a man's constitution. Within one tent, a surgeon's table creaks under the weight of a shattered thigh bone, the flesh around it lacerated and swollen. His assistant, a trembling lad not much older than 17, holds a basin of water with a cloth, likely the only clean instrument in sight. You fight back a wince, remembering that in this world, the surgeon's blade can be as merciless as the enemy's sword. Turning away, you notice a small group gathered around a traveller's wagon, painted in swirling blues and golds, a stark contrast to the grime of the camp. There, a storyteller named Fadila weaves a tale of distant lands across the salt road. Caravan oases in sun-scorched deserts, cities built on salt and silk, and a sultan whose caravan rivaled a king's army in spectacle. Her voice, warm and lilting, carries over the din, promising wonders beyond the horizon. You're entranced until the flog of maggots crawling through cracks in the wagon's wood snaps you back to grim reality. The path ahead forks into two. To the left, a grove of ancient oaks, sentinels that have witnessed 1,000 conflicts, offers shade and a whispered promise of ambush. To the right, a shallow stream trickles through the field, its clear water a rare gift, though dozens of soldiers jockey for position to refill battered flasks. You decide to approach the stream, each step revealing fresh traces of life. A hunter's snare half buried in mud, a child's wooden toy abandoned near a clump of reeds, a broken arrow, fletch wedged between 2 rocks. The world teems with stories, if only you know where to look. Kneeling by the water's edge, you cup the liquid and let its chill ripple through your fingers. Reflection flickers back at you, helmet half slipped, eyes wide with anticipation. You drink deeply, the water washing away grit and sweat. Behind you, laughter erupts. A pair of halberdiers locked in a boisterous contest of who can tell the worst pun. Every groan and snort of mirth feels like a small rebellion against the dread clinging to the camp like a second skin. Suddenly a distant horn echoes, low, sonorous, and laced with dread. It isn't the commander's call, this one carries the weight of prophecy. Soldiers stop mid-laugh, eyes flicking up at the canopy of sky. Overhead, ravens wheel, their cries slicing through the quiet. A hush falls, a heavy blanket draped over the world, before the camp erupts anew into nervous energy. You rise, dripping and invigorated, senses humming. The horns will sound again sooner than you think to summon the army to practice formations. You shed the cloak that clung to you, feeling the dawn chill nip at your shoulders. Close by, a carpenter hammers at the frame of a makeshift palisade, each strike a punctuation in the day's opening chapter. The smell of fresh-cut timber mingles with that of ozone as the clouds break, sending slender rays of sunlight through the clearing. Each beam illuminates a different tableau, a group of children chasing a goat, a noble woman's retinue arriving in their finery, powder and silk dissolving into the camp's raw tapestry, an itinerant monk at the camp's edge, chanting psalms through weathered lips. This is no painted panorama of sanitized glory. It's a living mosaic of tension and triviality, sweat and sanctity, laughter and lament. And as you stand on the cusp of this human tapestry, mud beneath your boots, sky expanding above, you understand that war, for all its chaos, is also a crucible that tempers not just steel, but the souls who bear it. As the officers' trumpets prepare to pierce the calm, the groves of oaks give way to the wide plain where shields will lock and arrows will rain. You take a breath, savouring the last ephemeral moments of peace, the lull before the crescendo. Ahead lies horror and heroism, pain and pilgrimage. But for now you're simply you, a wanderer on the edge of destiny, heart pounding with both dread and exhilaration. And as the horn prepares to rise again, and the horn's blast shatters the morning hush with the force of a thunderclap, muscles quivering in its wake, a wave of clamour ripples through the army lines, shouts, the clank of armour, the impatient stamping of hooves. You freeze for a heartbeat, caught between the last lingering warmth of dawn and the cold inevitability of combat. Your eyes scan the field. It's a sea of spears and banners, each pennon snapping like a crackling flame in the wind. The colours bleed into one another, crimson streaks of a duke's standard, the emerald curve of a merchant's guild, and the black and white Oxford cross of the church's militia. Their fluttering patterns feel alive, throbbing with purpose and fear. You snap into motion, shoulders rolling back as you square them to the coming storm. Foot soldiers rush past, gripping spears that gleam dull silver in the scant sunlight. Horses rear and whinny, nostrils flaring, bridles creaking under the sudden strain. You vault onto your mount, an aging warhorse named Bronte, whose muzzle is flecked with frost and sweat, and settle into the saddle, reins taut between your gloved hands. In that moment, the world reduces to a narrow corridor of destiny. Forward. You spur Bronte's flank, her hooves thundering across churned earth as the enemy line hovers on the horizon like a shapeless shadow. The wind whips past your visor, carrying the scent of cordite. No, not cordite, but the acrid sting of burning pitch and tar from hastily lit beacons along the palisade. On the right, archers knock arrows in synchronized choreography, the quiver of bowstrings a low hum in your ears. Beyond them, cavalry forms in wedge formations, a living spearhead eager to pierce flesh. You hear the distant clang of a ram's horns, battered siege engines straining against their tethers, ready to disgorge ruin upon wooden gates. Your commander, Lord Fenwick, sits atop a grey destrier not far away. His breastplate gleams. He lifts a gauntleted hand, index finger uncoiling like a conductor's baton. "Hold," he intones, voice carrying across the din. The signal, like fastening a latch, draws taut the cords of expectation. The adjustment in tempo is almost imperceptible, a collective breath held, a heartbeat suspended. You feel the rhythm in your chest, like a second drum echoing Fenwick's command. Then, without warning, the call to advance slices through the air. Lord Fenwick's sword arcs downward in a swift slash that catches the morning light. Signal enough. He urges his horse and the line surges forward. You gallop into the fray, a sea of steel and sinew. Ground pounds beneath Bronte's hooves, spears thrust outward, shields lock like puzzle pieces beneath a rain of arrows. The clash is instantaneous. The roar of combatants, the clang of metal on metal, the thud of men and horses hitting earth. You raise your sword, its edge catching rivulets of dew and blood alike, and bring it swinging into an enemy's spear shaft. The wood cracks with a sickening snap, and the man behind it reels back, eyes wide with surprise. You kick Bronte forward, closing distance on another foe. Around you, the battlefield morphs into an orchestration of violence. A foot soldier thrusts at your mount's flank. You lean to deflect with your shield, the impact jarring your arm. Ahead, a banner bearer staggers, fell by an arbalest bolt through the thigh. His standard drops, tumbling into the churned mud. The air fills with shouts of triumph and agony, wails of the dying, screams of the wounded. You taste copper on your tongue as your own first blow finds its mark. A helmeted head snaps back, vision obscured by a spray of gore. You pull back, chest heaving. Above the chaos, the sun breaks fully free, spotlighting the carnage in stark relief. Each man is now a fleeting silhouette, an archer kneeling to reload, a knight caught mid-swing, a child of war clutching a broken spear. Your eyes lock onto a distant silhouette, a standard bearer from a rival house. The folds of his flag twist in the wind like a serpent's tongue. You urge Bronte toward him, heart thumping like a drum. But as you close, an arrow whistles past. It strikes Bronte's flank. She staggers, throwing you off balance. You slide from the saddle, rolling across the sodden ground. Pain flares in your side where you've grazed a hidden rock. Behind you, Bronte stumbles and falls with a thunderous crash, dust and blood rising around her. Your breath catches. No companion of battle is more loyal than your mount. You scramble up, every muscle screaming, and reach for her bridle, but there's no time. A pair of enemy knights looms, theirs lances levelled. You plant feet wide, shield raised, sword ready. They charge. The world narrows to the length of their lances, the straining of their warhorses' flanks, the cold burn of fear. You brace for impact. Shards of splintered wood and leather hiss around you as the charging lances close in. The world contracts to the length of polished ash and steel, the shriek of metal rubbing on metal, the thunder of hooves driving you back into yourself. You plant your feet firm in the churned mud, adrenaline pounding like a forge hammer in your temples, and you twist your shield at the last moment. The first lance strikes with a hollow crack, splintering against your shield's rim. A shockwave pulses through your arm, jarring your bones, but you hold tight, letting the momentum carry you around the flank of your assailant. His second thrust comes too slow, drawn out by the weight of pride, and you deflect with your sword tip, forcing the lance harmlessly aside. Behind him, another knight bears down, his great helm's visor flanged like a snarling beast. You pivot, feet sliding in a wave of muck, and bring your shield to bear across your chest. The impact rattles your helm, and you inhale the tang of blood mixed with sweat. Around you, the air vibrates with the clash of steel and the cries of men. From the corner of your eye, you spot a foot soldier under a tattered banner, the green and gold standard of House Eversmist. He's been grappling with an enemy spearman, each thrust countered by desperate grit. You seize the moment, lunging forward to deliver a blow that snaps his spear in two. He staggers, eyes wide, as you arch your sword in a curving arc that hisses through the air. Then there's a hammering at your back. A crossbow bolt, too small and swift to see, rips through the leather at your shoulder blade. You cry out, twisting to reach around for the bolt's shaft, but it's lodged too deep. Pain blossoms hot and furious, and your vision blurs at the edges. You stagger, bracing on your shield as the battlefield tilts beneath you. Bronte's fallen form flickers at the periphery, blood pooling around her muzzle like spilled ink. Guilt claws at your heart. She saved your life more times than you can count. But there's no time to mourn. A warhorse crashes past, mass and fury uncontained, sweeping a trio of soldiers into a tangled heap of armour and sinew. You force a deep breath, tasting the dust and copper of close combat. Each heartbeat drums a new mantra. Survive. Fight. Survive. You redouble your grip on the sword, raising it to intercept the next threat. A booming voice roars above the tumult. Lord Fenwick's clarion call, even pitched through a horn, wouldn't carry this far, but his voice is unmistakable. Regroup at the eastern ridge, he bellows, riding through a gap in the lines like a spearhead of silver. His destrier is streaked with foam, eyes wild but unbroken. The cry is a lifeline. You pivot, planting your shield and hacking at a spear-wielding foot soldier who closes with a guttural snarl. He crumples beneath your blade, clay-spattered, but you barely notice. You're scanning for any gap, any sign of the ridge's crest. To your left, the plain slopes upward, marked by crumbling stones of an old watchtower. A handful of grey-clad musketeers, anachronistic newcomers in this medieval tableau, are reloading their matchlocks, primed to unleash thunder and light on the enemy below. Their black powder scent stings your throat, a strange contrast to the sweat and blood around you. You break into a run, blood roaring in your ears. Each step is a negotiation with the mud. Your boots sink, nearly up to the ankles. Behind you, the clash rolls on, a great wave of chaos that threatens to engulf you. Yet you press forward, vision narrowing on the ridge's lip where the stones promise vantage and sanctuary. As you climb, your thoughts whirl. Will you make it in time? Will the wounded, men you've shared bread with, be left to the enemy's mercy? The wind whips your hair, roars between your teeth, and for an instant you taste something like freedom. The pure, raw sense of living on the razor's edge. You clear the crest and plunge into the line of grey musketeers. Their leader, a wiry captain with salt and pepper whiskers, nods grimly. "Form up!" he shouts, and they arrange into ranks as if dancing their preordained ritual. You take your place beside them, shield across your arm, sword poised. Below, the enemy lines advance, an undulating mass of pikes and visored helmets. Arrows rise, black against the sky, and the musketeers prime and aim. A single spark flares, then another, and suddenly the air erupts in blasts like distant thunderclaps, each flash peeling flesh from bone, each report a shattering sermon on the power of gunpowder. Soldiers in the enemy's front ranks collapse, their screams swallowed by the second volley. You lunge into that chaos, swords swinging at the survivors as the musketeers reload. The ground is slick with blood, the scent so thick you can't tell if it's your own or another's. Yet amid the carnage, a stubborn spark of order emerges. You and the musketeers hold the ridge, steel and shot combining to cleave a swath through the foe. But this fleeting victory demands a price. Your wounded shoulder burns and sweat mixes with the salt from countless cuts. Nearby, the captain falls, a bullet tearing through his throat like a cruel exclamation point. He collapses at your feet, eyes wide with stars. Before you can rouse the others, a rumble shakes the ridge. From below, fresh enemy cavalry surges upward, lances glinting with malice, and you realise the ridge was never meant to be held. It's bait. A scream rises behind you. You spin to see a fellow soldier, young Tomas, wrenched from his feet as a charger kicks up mud around them. He vanishes beneath hooves. Fear curves in your gut, hot and ravenous. This isn't a manoeuvre. It's a trap. You glance at the musketeers. Half are down, the rest look to you for a command you can't give. Instinct overrides thought. You scream a single word, fall back. And before the cavalry can crest, you're ordering a retreat. Shield up, sword ready, heart pounding so fiercely it feels it might burst. Every step down the ridge is a gamble with gravity and blood. You crash through camp followers and supply wagons, upending barrels of wine that spray like wine-dark seas. The stench of ale and brined beef mingles with sweat, creating a grotesque perfume of desperation. Behind you, the musketeers provide covering fire, their matchlocks barking defiance. Pellets of agony churn the mud where the cavalry would have ridden. You force Tomas's limp body into a waiting wagon. He's still breathing, but barely. You press a hand over his wound, warm with sticky red life. A young woman, a vivandière wearing a tattered bonnet, appears by your side brandishing a vial of laudanum. "Take this," she whispers. "He'll sleep through the worst." You nod, swallowing the recoil at her presence. Civilians in war always test your guilt. You press the vial to Tomas's lips, coaxing bitter drops down his throat. The retreat becomes a blur of faces. The merchant Marga huddled by overturned crates of coin pouches, Brenna the mercenary kneeling to lift a comrade's shattered shield, Arvid the squire stumbling under a wounded rider's weight, and you, wounded, blooded, alive, realise that survival itself is an act of defiance. The line breaks at last into the woodland beyond the ridge, branches clawing at armour, leaves slick with dew and gore. Birds take flight, startled from their roosts by the hammer and thunder of broken war. Here, under the mottled canopy you pause. The world tilts back into shape. The distant clangour of battle beyond these trees, the hollow echoes of muskets, the frantic hoofbeats. You breathe in stuttering gulps, forcing your heart into a steady rhythm. Somewhere ahead lies sanctuary, a monastery's stone walls, a river's cool promise, perhaps even a healer's tent. For now you're no longer a knight in formation, but a survivor making his own path. Your thoughts turn to Bronte. You scan the tree line, half expecting her phantom silhouette. The loss aches like a missing limb. Yet you know, life presses on. You lift your gaze toward a shaft of sunlight piercing the leaves, illuminating motes of dust like stars. In this quiet aftermath, you taste something beyond fear, something like hope, and you step forward into the forest's hush, every sense alert, every fibre alive, ready for whatever comes next. Beyond the forest's edge, the world shifts once more. The trees thin to reveal a gentle meadow dappled in gold and green, the grass bowed by morning dew. You step onto this soft pier of earth, boots sinking only slightly, an odd luxury after the churned chaos of battlefields and ridge. The hum of cicadas rises like a distant choir, and sunlight filters through the leaves, warm enough to chase away the sharp tang of blood from your senses. Your companions, scarred and weary, trail behind you in ragged formation. Brenna's lips are set in a grim line, her eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting the enemy to burst from every copse. Marga limps, clutching her purse of coins as if it were a talisman. Each jingle seems to reassure her heart. Even the squire Arvid, who yesterday fumbled pikes like a child learning to walk, now moves with a cautious purpose, sword balanced in one hand, shield strapped across his back. A gentle breeze stirs the grasses, carrying hints of honeysuckle and wild thyme. It feels like a benediction, a soft promise that life can still bloom beyond the horrors you've witnessed. You inhale deeply, letting this moment of peace wash over you. For a fleeting second, your thoughts drift to home, the stone walls of your childhood farmstead, the soft laughter of siblings echoing through fields of barley. But then a bird's call, sharp, insistent, snaps you back. There is no turning back now. Across the meadow, an ancient abbey looms, its once crumbling facade now restored by the steady hands of monks who have watched over these lands for generations. The tall spire, crowned with a simple cross, points skyward, as if urging weary souls toward solace. You remember the itinerant monk you saw in camp, chanting psalms through weathered lips. Perhaps he belongs here, tending to the wounded and offering comfort. You lead the group toward the heavy oak doors, their iron bands etched with symbols of fish and wheat, icons of sustenance and faith. As you push them open, a hush greets you, broken only by the soft rustle of robes and the distant drip of water in the cloister's fountain. The abbey's interior is a cathedral of shadow and light, pillars of white stone rising like silent sentinels, arches framing stained glass windows that cast rainbow patterns onto flagstone floors. A frail abbot with a silver beard approaches, his robes swept with the scent of frankincense and old parchment. His kindly eyes rest on your blood-streaked armour and the makeshift litter bearing to mass. "Welcome, children," he intones, voice like a gentle breeze. "You carry wounds of body and spirit. Enter freely, and leave your burdens at the threshold." Within the infirmary, monks move with quiet efficiency. One tends to Thomas, washing his wound with water drawn from a nearby well and packing it with clean bandages steeped in herbal salves. Another takes your crossbow bolt and removes it with a practiced twist, pressing rushes to staunch the bleeding. Each gesture is precise, almost reverent. As your shoulder is splintered, a young monk named Brother Caelan kneels beside you. "I have journeyed far to learn the art of healing," he murmurs. "War brings sorrow, but we strive to bring restoration." He applies a poultice of comfrey and yarrow, its bitter herbal scent sharp at the back of your throat. The pain dulls, replaced by a warmth that seeps into your bones. Once tended, you exit into the cloister's garden, where rows of medicinal plants stand like sentries. Lavender, rue, and elder grow in tidy beds, their leaves whispering secrets of centuries-old cures. You pause to cradle a stalk of hyssop, its velvety leaves cool against your fingertips. Nearby, villagers, civilians displaced by the ravages of war, gather in a shaded nook. Their faces tell stories of loss, a mother clutching a ragged doll, an old man tracing the carved initials on a sword hilt like a photograph faded by time. They look to you with a mix of hope and dread, as if wondering whether salvation rides behind your bloodied gauntlets. A child steps forward, barefoot knobby knees dusted with pollen, and offers you a small loaf of bread, warm from the communal oven. You accept it with a nod, the crust crackling beneath your fingers. Each bite is a revelation. The simple sweetness of grain, baked with care and shared in kindness. It is a reminder that even amidst the darkest chapters, humanity persists in gentle gestures. The abbot's voice calls you to the refectory, where a long table awaits. You take your seat alongside soldiers and civilians alike. Pitchers of cool water and bowls of pottage, root vegetables simmered in broth, are passed down the line. Conversation is hushed. The clink of spoons against wood is a sacred hymn to survival. Across from you sits Brenna and Marga, whispering about the next move. Rumours swirl, reinforcements from a neighbouring duchy, a possible parley with the enemy's emissaries, even rumours of a traitor within Lord Fenwick's council. You weigh their words, the taste of salt in your mouth a reminder that trust, like victory, must be earned. As the meal concludes, you rise to speak, voice echoing in the vaulted hall. Our journey continues, you say softly, meeting each pair of eyes in turn. This abbey has given us shelter and healing, but the war still rages beyond these walls. We will carry on, stronger, wiser, and united by what we've endured. A murmur of agreement ripples through the hall. The abbot steps forward, placing a hand on your shoulder. Go with our blessing, he says, and remember, peace is forged not only in victory, but in mercy. Outside, the sun hangs low, gilding the meadow in amber hues. Your restored company sets out once more, shadows stretching long behind you. Each step is measured, every breath a testament to the journey's cost and promise. And as you cross the threshold, you realise that the battlefield is not the only arena of trial. The true war may lie in the forging of peace. One choice, one act of compassion at a time, in a world that knows too well the price of blood. You move forward into the twilight, senses alive to every whisper of wind and promise of dawn. Dust spreads across the rolling hills like oil spilled on water, pooling in the valleys and darkening the edges of the weary road. You tighten your cloak against the evening chill, the fabric still damp from the abbey's dewy gardens. Behind you, the meadow recedes, its soft light surrendered to night's advancing fingers. Ahead, the path narrows between gnarled oaks, whose twisted boughs form a natural archway, inviting you into the unknown. Your company trudges onward. Brenna's gait is steady, each footfall measured against the road's rise and fall. Marga's purse is silent now, as though the coins themselves fear to jingle in the hush. Arvid's youthful shoulders carry both sword and burden, every step tracing lessons learned in blood and mud. Thomas rides in the rickety wagon, laudanum's haze softening his features into peaceful relief. Firelight dances in the windows of a lone inn, the Silver Stag, its signs swinging on iron hinges with a mournful creak. The tavern's welcoming glow spills onto the road like a promise of warmth and silence from the war's distant drums. Hunger tugs at your belly, and you realise how raw the ache is. Not just for food, but for a place to cast off armour and let the world breathe around you. Inside, the common room is a patchwork of candlelight and shadow. Rough-hewn tables bear the scars of countless tankards and spilled ale. The air is thick with the scent of roasted venison, spilled mead and human sweat. A hearth crackles at the far end, its embers glowing like embattled eyes in the gloom. You claim a table near the fire. The innkeeper, a stout man with arms like tree trunks, greets you with a nod. His name, you learn, is Gerald, and he once fought as a pikeman before a wound forced his retirement. He moves with slow precision, fetching a platter of salted pork, loaves of barley bread, and bowls of thick creamy cheese. Each slice of meat is a revelation, each sip of ale a balm to the soul. As you feast, conversation sparks like kindling. Brenna recounts the moment she first unsheathed her sword, a memory edged with pride and regret. Marga shares rumours whispered in far-flung marketplaces, of an approaching winter so harsh it might freeze rivers solid, of a noble's daughter who rode into battle disguised as a squire. You listen, sensing how each tale is both escape and mirror to your own journey. The inn's other patrons are a motley crew, a travelling apothecary polishing a vial of emerald tincture, a quartet of wandering actors practising a tragedy in muffled tones, and a hooded figure in the corner who watches you with something unreadable behind slit eyes. When you catch his gaze, his lips curve into a ghost of a smile before he ducks into shadow. Outside, a storm rumbles in the east, an ominous pulse rolling across the sky. Flickers of lightning split the clouds, reflecting off the window panes in fleeting spectral illuminations. The wind rises, carrying a distant moan, like the lament of unseen spirits. You rise, shedding your cloak by the hearth, feeling the weight of the day slip from your shoulders. The inn's warmth seeps into your bones, and for a moment, you close your eyes, letting the hearth's roar drown out the memory of battle horns. But rest is a fragile thing. Gerald returns with a battered scroll and lays it before you. The paper bears Lord Fenwick's seal, cracked but still proud, and the note reads, "We require your counsel at dawn, on the eastern terrace of Harrenhal Keep. The war's tides shift swiftly. Your insight may yet turn the wheel. The words tingle on your skin like a summons from fate. A hush falls over the table. Brenna sets down her tankard. Marga's fork hovers mid-air. Arvid's eyes widen in uncertain anticipation. Even Thomas, half asleep, shifts in his seat. You trace the seal with a fingertip, its wax rough against your calloused skin. The inn's shadows seem to lean closer, curious for your answer. Before you can speak, Gerald leans in, voice low as a confession. Strange folk passed through earlier, riders in grey cloaks bearing news of a traitor's rise in Harrenhal. They said the traitor's name was, well, none dared speak it aloud. He shrugs, eyes darting to the chimney. Take care, walls have ears, and roads have ghosts. Silence follows, heavy and pregnant. Outside, lightning flickers again, casting the room into a swift eclipse. You look to your companions, each face lit briefly by yellow glow. Determination in Brenna's jaw, curiosity in Arvid's youth, guarded hope in Marga's stare. Your hand closes around the scroll. The inn's warmth feels distant now, as if the hearth itself fears what dawn may bring. This story took us a long time to gather. If you're finding it worth the cold, subscribe. And now, back to the hearth. You tuck the scroll into your belt. Tomorrow's light will bring counsels and conspiracies, storms and secrets. But tonight, you sit by the fire, a temporary reprieve, a moment's grace before the next reckoning. And as the storm's first raindrops tap at the window, you raise your tankard in quiet tribute. To survival, to kinship, and to the road that still lies ahead. Night's mantle deepens outside the Silver Stag, rain pattering against the rough-hewn shutters like distant drums heralding war's next movement. You sit by the hearth with Brenna, Marga, Arvid, and the Vivandière, faces lit by flickering flames that cast tall, dancing shadows across their features. The scroll in your belt seems to pulse with unseen energy, its contents promising a dawn that might burn as fiercely as this fire. A low groan escapes from Thomas's lips as he shifts in his wagon bed just beyond the tavern door. His breathing is steady, the laudanum working its gentle magic, yet you remain vigilant. War has taught you that peace, even in slumber, is fragile. Brenna stokes the embers with a charred poker. Morning won't wait, she murmurs, voice hushed. Fenwick needs our counsel before the council meets. He trusts your vision. You nod, tracing the seal's cracked wax under your sleeve. The traitor's shadow in Harrenhal hangs over every whispered plan. If Gerald's grey-cloaked riders spoke truth, then the keep's polished halls may hide daggers under velvet cloaks. A sudden knock at the door interrupts your thoughts. A cloaked figure slips inside, hood drawn low, boots tapping softly on the stone floor. They pause by the fire, lowering their hood to reveal Brother Calen, the infirmary monk who tended your wound at the abbey. His eyes, luminous under Cal's shadow, hold urgent news. "Forgive the intrusion," he whispers, voice trembling like distant bells, "but I uncovered this." He places a folded parchment on the table. The wax crest, black serpent entwined around a chalice, makes your blood run cold. It's the symbol of House Dravendell, ancient rivals to Fenwick's line and rumoured masters of intrigue. Unfolding the parchment reveals a map of the keep's inner wards, annotated with cryptic notes. Heed the southern battlements at moon's zenith. The jester's tunnel leads beneath the council chamber, and key held by one named Aurelia. Friend or foe uncertain. Marga leans forward, fingers brushing the map's fragile edges. If this is real, we may move unseen, but betrayal runs deep in those halls. Arvid's youthful face tightens. Could Aurelia be the noble's daughter in disguise? The one in the rumours? Brother Caelan's gaze flickers to you. I saw her slip into the Abbey's gardens earlier, cloaked in silk and sorrow. She whispered of sanctuary before a storm. She may hold the key to unmasking the traitor. Thunder rattles the tavern roof, and a flash of lightning lights the room like a second sun. Each drop of rain drives home the urgency. Night wanes, and soon you must choose. Do you infiltrate the keep via its hidden tunnels? Do you confront Fenwick with rumours, risking your own reputation? Or do you seek Aurelia's trust in the Abbey's ruins? You close your eyes, summoning the weight of every choice made since Dawn's horn first sounded. The path ahead is woven of risk and resolve, a tapestry of subterfuge and steel. Finally, you lean forward, voice steady as sword steel. We move at moon's zenith. We find Aurelia in the gardens and learn the truth. Tonight we become shadows, and when dawn breaks, Harrenhal's halls will know who they can trust. The group exchanges determined glances, the firelight dancing in their eyes. Outside the storm rages on, but inside your hearts, a new resolve kindles, fierce and unyielding. You rise, cloak swirling around you, and step toward destiny's threshold, every sense alive to the storm's fury and the silence that follows its passing. At the stroke of midnight, the tavern's hearth flickers one final time before cooling into a bed of embers, and you slip into the rain-lashed street with all the grace of a half-whispered promise. The wind whips your cloak around your knees, carrying the taste of ozone and damp stone. Behind you, the Silver Stag's windows glow like watchful eyes closing in sleep. Ahead, the keep's silhouette rises in molten darkness, its battlements jagged against storm-tossed clouds. Your companions pad behind you through puddles that mirror the night sky, each step measured to avoid the tavern's creaking sign and the watchful gaze of late-night guards. Brenna leads, her boots silent on the cobblestones, every fibre of her posture taut with readiness. Marga trails at the rear, clutching her coin purse like a lifeline, while Arvid, wide-eyed and wide-hearted, clutches his sword's hilt as though it were his only friend. The old watchtower door stands ajar just as you expected. You signalled Brother Caelan, who moves forward, unrolling the map from his robes. His lantern's glow reveals the sketched passage beneath the ramparts, a narrow mule path leading to a spiral stair hidden behind a collapsed turret. His finger drags along the parchment, pausing at a scrawled note. Beware the warder's trap. Water floods the corridor. You nod, and Brenna pushes the door open wider. Inside, the air is rank with mildew and the ghost of past fires. The tower's inner walls are slick with moss. Each stone seems to groan under your weight. You climb the spiral stair, the lantern casting owl-shaped shadows that glide across the damp stone. Water drips from overhead, echoing in your ears like the tick of a great clock counting down the hours. Halfway up, the floor gives way beneath Arvid's foot with a hollow crack. He freezes, but Brenna catches him with an iron arm, halting his descent. Beneath the rotted timber lies a shallow pit that would have swallowed a man whole. You pry away the weakened boards, toss them aside, and mark the trap with broken flint. Replacing the cover with a press of boot, you press on. At the top, the turret's shattered rooftop reveals a narrow ledge hugging the keep's outer wall. Rain pelts you without mercy, turning stone to glass and boots to hazard. You edge forward, shield raised against the wind's bite. Below, the courtyard glimmers with torchlight, soldiers' silhouettes flickering against granite walls. Brother Caelan steps forward, lantern held high. He calls softly, "Aurelia." It's safe. We come as friends of Fenwick. Silence greets him, until a voice like silver bells answers from below. "Prove it." A figure emerges from the shadows, a young woman in simple linen robes, her hair undone and plastered to her cheeks by rain. Her eyes shine with defiance, yet something in her posture speaks of desperation. Marga steps forward, drawing a small medallion engraved with Fenwick's crest. "He sent us," Aurelia's gaze flicks to the seal. With one slender hand, she lifts a hidden latch on the wall and reveals a trapdoor beneath a loose flagstone. She gestures for you to follow. Descending into the damp undercroft, you squint at the narrow brick-lined passage. Water trickles along its base, pooling to mid-shin in places. The air is thick, smelling of earth and something more acrid, the stink of stagnant secrets. Brother Caelan holds the lantern aloft, revealing graffiti-scrawled walls, pleas for mercy, names carved in trembling script, crude maps of the castle's layout. At the passage's end, a stout oak door barred with iron bands blocks your way. Aurelia presses her hand to her chest and withdraws a hairpin, a slender thing glinting cold, and soon the lock clicks open. Inside, a chamber the size of a small chapel lies abandoned. Charred pews stand half-burned, and the floor is littered with scorched pages from a long-forgotten ledger. You move forward, each footstep echoing like a requiem. Against the far wall, a marble basin, once a holy font, still holds water, its surface still as stone. Aurelia steps to the basin and brushes her fingers across its rim, sending ripples across the mirror-dark liquid. "This is where he meets them," she whispers. "The traitor and his conspirators. Their shadows dance here when no one watches." You crouch beside her, peering into the basin. Beneath the water's surface, shapes shift. Fleeting visions of masked figures, the flash of dagger hilts, low laughter echoing in the marble gloom. Your stomach clenches. The water betrays grotesque certainty. These halls are stained with more than candle wax. A sudden scuff of boots above sends hearts pounding. You rise as one, sword and shield drawn. From the trapdoor, steps descend. 2 armoured sentries, torches held high. Their gaze sweeps the dim room until it lands on you. "By the cross and crown," one mutters. "What treachery is this?" Aurelia holds up her hands, voice steady. "They know of the traitor's plot. They will help us bring him to justice." The soldiers exchange glances. The taller one lowers his torch slightly. "Lady Aurelia, your plea honours the king's justice, but a false word and our blades will fall." You step forward, voice calm as the water's surface. "We have Fenwick's seal. We have proof of his treason in these carvings, in this basin's visions. Stand with justice, and you stand with the realm." The sentries hesitate, the weight of honour against duty racking them. Then the shorter one nods, torchlight flickering in his stern eyes. "We stand with you, but first we must secure the council chamber." Aurelia's lips part in relief. "Then show us the way." The 3 of you move cautiously back toward the trapdoor, the sentries leading the way. Each step feels like the breathing gap between 2 heartbeats, tense, laden with the promise of revelation. As you ascend, water drips onto your cloak, and the ancient stones whisper secrets behind every corner. The storm outside rages still, but here, within these hidden veins of Harrenhal, a storm of politics and power is about to crest. The stairs level out at a narrow corridor lit by sconces. At its end, the grand double doors of the council chamber loom. Tall oak panels carved with the intertwined histories of noble houses. From within, muffled voices argue, punctuated by the tap of a gavel and the low timbre of aristocratic menace. Aurelia exhales, fingers tightening on the hilt of a dagger at her hip. This is it. Once these doors open, there is no turning back. You glance at your companions. Brenna's still resolve, Marga's clenched jaw, Arvid's determined eyes, and feel a surge of unity that outweighs the storm's fury. Then let us break dawn upon their deception. With a shared nod, you push open the council chamber doors, and the conspirators within are met by 5 blades and the unyielding light of truth. The council chamber's doors swing open with a sonorous groan that reverberates off vaulted ceilings and frozen gazes alike. Torches perched in wrought iron sconces flare as one, casting elongated shadows that stretch like spectres across the polished marble floor. You step forward, heart hammering in sync with the chamber's ticking hush, and the flicker of torchlight illuminates the assembly. Lords and ladies in sumptuous robes, their jewelled collars glinting like stars caught in a spider's web of intrigue. Lord Fenwick sits at the high table, crown-like circlet tilted askew, his face pale as a moonlit lake. To his right, the traitor, Sir Radulf Dravendale, leans forward, silver cloak pooling beneath his shoulders like spilled starlight. His lip curls into a mocking half-smile as your group approaches, weapons drawn but lowered in deference to the chamber's solemnity. Aurelia's voice rings out, clear and unwavering. "Sir Radulf, by your hand the realm's blood has been traded for coin. Your alliances with foreign powers have endangered every hearth and harvest. We present proof." She lays the basin's water-lensed visions on the table, an obsidian mirror swirling with ghostly images. The chamber falls into stunned silence as the apparitions play out. Hushed meetings in moonlit gardens, the exchange of sealed letters bearing the Dravendel crest, the betrayal's whispered oath beneath the keep's highest tower. Radulf's laugh echoes, brittle as winter ice. You speak of shadows and tales. What proof have you beyond foolish rumours? He gestures to a pair of his hired enforcers flanking the dais, massive brutes in iron helms whose nostrils flare with each breath. Brother Calen steps forward, voice steady as steel. "This map," he says, spreading the annotated parchment before them. "It shows the tunnels you carved beneath the abbey, the hidden doorways you used to slip in and out of council sessions. The cipher on these margins, your own hand." Murmurs ripple through the assembly, each lord exchanging cautious glances. Behind them, tapestries depicting the kingdom's storied past seem to lean in, eager for the outcome's verdict. Fennec rises, his bearing once regal, now trembling with conflict. If these claims hold weight, then justice demands inquiry. He casts his gaze to the chamber guard, seizes documents, let the cipher masters decode every line. Two scribes, pale and spectacled, spring forward, gathering Radulf's scrolls and missives with trembling hands. As they work, the traitor's hired swords shoulder towards your party, intent on silencing the accusers. Brenna's sword arcs in a flash of steel, cutting the nearest mercenary's weapon from his grasp. The clang rings out, a single note of defiance. The chamber erupts. Lords leap from seats, some drawing daggers from hidden sheaths, others rushing to block the exits. Chaos ignites like tinder in dry wood. Amberlight fractures against steel, and you're thrust into motion, shield raised, blade slicing a path through startled deputies. Arvid ducks under a scholar's stool, rolling to his feet and rushing to defend Brother Calen as the monk clutches his lantern like a beacon of truth. Above the melee, Fenwick's voice booms, "Enough!" He stands atop the dais, brow furrowed, gaze sweeping the chaos he's wrought. If blood must be spilled for truth, then so be it, but let it not be the innocent who bleed. At his command, the chamber guard, elite knights sworn to the crown, descend into the fray. Their silver armour glints with authority as they part the combatants like a scythe through wheat. The traitor's mercenaries are corralled, swords knocked from fingers, while your allies stand at Fenwick's side, faces streaked with sweat and resolve. Fenwick descends the steps, meeting Aurelia's gaze. "My daughter," he breathes, voice thick with remorse and relief. "You knew well the danger." Aurelia inclines her head. "Father, your realm required your trust. I could no longer serve a crown that blinded itself to betrayal." He nods, turning to Radulf. "Sir Radulf Dravendel, you stand accused of treason. How do you plead?" The traitor's laughter has drained from his eyes, replaced by white-hot fury. Yet as he opens his mouth, the scribes step forward with decoded letters, damning proof inked in his own ciphered hand. The assembled lords lean in as the final seal is broken. Fennec lifts his hand to call for order, but the traitor's mercenaries surge, axes raised. In that heartbeat, a clash erupts once more. Order versus chaos, honour versus treachery. You step into the breach, cutting a path toward Radulf's flank, shield deflecting a swing aimed at Aurelia's back. She turns, dagger gleaming, and strikes. The blow is swift, a note of justice in the chamber's symphony of steel. Radulf staggers, eyes widening as the weight of his ambition collapses in that single motion. Silence falls again, quieter now, heavy with reckoning. The chamber guard binds the traitor's hand, stepping between him and the assembly. Fennec moves to stand beside Aurelia, pride and sorrow entwined in his gaze. The chamber's doors open wide, and dawn's grey light spills in, illuminating the battered but unbroken faces within. Each witness, noble and commoner alike, senses the realm's breath held in that moment of deliverance. Fenwick raises a gauntleted hand. "By crown and council, I absolve my daughter's actions as those of loyalty to the realm. As for Sir Radulf Dravendel, let the laws of the land decide his fate, and may his downfall remind us that no throne stands secure on the shifting sands of deceit." Aurelia steps forward, voice clear as morning bells. "Let this day mark a new dawn for Harrenhal. Where there was treason, let there be justice. Where there was fear, let there be hope." The assembly erupts not in cheers, but in a solemn ovation, an acknowledgement that the realm endures, tempered by trial and redeemed by truth. and as you stand amid the echoing clang of armour and the quiet blessing of dawn, you know that the tapestry of history has gained a new, indelible thread, one woven by courage, conviction, and the unbreakable bond of those who chose light over shadow. The air in the council chamber is thick with the scent of wax and spilled ale, mingling with the faint copper of blood and the tang of wet stone. You stand among broken torches, discarded gauntlets, and the hushed murmurs of shaken nobles finding their voices as dawn's pale light seeps through stained glass windows. The ancient chamber, once a cradle of whispered conspiracies, now feels cleansed, its marble floor streaked with the footprints of truth. You meet Brenna's gaze, her armour dented, cloak torn, but her eyes alight with hard-won relief. Around you, the chamber guard secures Sir Radolf's bound form, his regal silver cloak sullied by mud and disgrace. Even in defeat, his posture retains a noble rigidity, as if the weight of his treachery cannot bend his pride. Lord Fenwick, gaunt face drawn but resolute, moves to stand beside you. His voice, hoarse from shouting but steady, fills the hall. Let orders be sent. Restore the wards, tend to the wounded, and see that Rodulf's estates fall under the Crown's care until justice is served. His words echo like a benediction, a promise that order will rise from chaos. Outside the chamber, the halls are alive with activity. Servants hurry to extinguish torches, scribes race to record the day's revelations, and ale flows freely to steady trembling hands. You step into the corridor, where the scent of roasting meats wafts from the kitchens, a comforting contrast to the day's harsh realities. In the courtyard beyond, the war horses, their harnesses dented, their flanks flecked with sweat, drift in the early light, eager for release. One by one, knights and soldiers gather, eyes bright with unspoken understanding. You approach Bronte's stabled form. Though her flank is bandaged and her breath shallow, she lifts her head when she recognizes your approach. You slip a hand along her neck, feeling the warmth beneath her tack, and whisper a soft pledge to see her healed. Aurelia emerges onto the terrace, her robes now trimmed with a simple silver clasp denoting her restored honour. She looks across the castle grounds. Banners still flutter, but the pennant of Dravendale lies in tatters. Side by side, you and she gaze at the horizon, where mist rises from the river like pale threads, unravelling a dark tapestry. "Your courage gave me truth," she says, voice soft yet unwavering. "Now, we must weave hope." You nod, feeling the weight of her words settle around you, a mantle of responsibility and possibility. Your thoughts turn to the wounded. Thomas, raised from near death, emerges from the infirmary on unsteady legs, supported by Brother Caelan's gentle arm. His eyes are light when he sees you, and a grin wavers across his pale face, proof that healing, too, can triumph. Margaret approaches, purse jingling as if to remind you that life's small joys remain. Her usual quip falters in this morning light, replaced by an earnest smile. She brushes a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Perhaps now," she murmurs, "we can trade secrets for spices once more, and not blood." Brenna moves to join you, helmed head unbowed. She buries her gauntlet in your shoulder in a gesture of solidarity. "There's more to do," she reminds you. "The duchies to the north need warning, and the abbey awaits tribute for their mercy." You inhale the crisp morning air, tasting the promise of roads yet travelled. A horn sounds, a deep, resonant note that unfurls across the courtyard like a banner of resolve. It calls you to the keep's great ramparts, where Fenwick awaits to address the gathering. As you climb the stone steps, each creak underfoot seems to chant the realm's renewal. Atop the ramparts, the wind whips your cloak, carrying with it the distant sound of hammers repairing battlements and minstrel strains drifting from the keep's great hall. The assembled crowd, soldiers, peasants, merchants, and nobles, stands arrayed like a living tapestry, a mosaic of faces that represent every strand of the kingdom's fabric. Fenwick raises his hand for silence. In his gaze shines the forge of renewed purpose. "Today," he proclaims, "we turn from the shadows of betrayal to the light of unity. Let every patch of this realm know that justice will guide our path, and mercy will temper our swords." A cheer rolls forward from the crowd, tentative at first, then swelling into a chorus that shakes the ramparts. You feel the crowd's warmth wash over you, a tide of shared purpose. From your vantage, you see the river's silver ribbon winding through fields where harvesters already begin their day. unaware of the dawn they herald. In the distance, smoke rises from the abbey's chimneys, a column of white smoke against the sky's soft blue. Life pulses outward from the keep, an endless current of stories yet to be told. You close your eyes, letting the wind carry your memory back to the field of battle, to mud, sweat, and steel, to slaughter and sacrifice, to the faces of allies forged in hardship. Then you open them, letting hope take shape as you see children glance up in wonder, soldiers exchange relieved embraces, and nobility and commoner alike stand shoulder to shoulder. Aurelia stands at your side, gaze fixed on the horizon. "What now?" she asks, tone equal parts anticipation and gravity. You smile, the lines of fatigue softening. "Now," you say, voice sure, "we rebuild." We carry these lessons to the edges of the realm, stories of despair conquered by resolve, of kingdoms saved by unlikely companions. The road ahead will be long, but together we will walk it. With that, you step forward into the crowd's cheering tide, senses alive to the promise in every face, every heartbeat. The tapestry of history unfurls anew, each thread vibrant with possibility and the unspoken covenant that from sorrow, strength is born, and from treachery, truth prevails. High above the ramparts, the morning breeze carries the clamour of the keep's repair, hammers striking iron, saws singing through wood, voices raised in laughter and song. You descend the stone steps alongside Aurelia, each footfall echoing the vow you made, to walk the road of rebuilding, together. Beyond the outer gate, the world unfurls like a long-forgotten tapestry, fields of barley bending in the wind, orchards heavy with rosy fruit, and meadows dotted with wildflowers that sway as if applauding your passage. The air is sweet with the scent of fresh earth, of promise breathing life into land once stamped by war's cruel hoof. Your company moves as one. Brenna leads the way, her armour polished and repatched, the dents worn like medals of honour. Marga follows close, her coin purse lighter but her spirit buoyant, pockets jingling in time with her heartbeat. Arvid's stride is bold now, each step a testament to lessons learned in the crucible of conflict. Thomas rides in a cart, his shoulder wrapped in clean bandages, eyes bright with renewed hope, while brother Caelan walks beside him, murmuring prayers of thanks. At the crossroads, a signpost points to the northern duchies, Harrenwood, Ashville, and Silverditch. You pause, fingers resting on the carved names, and let your gaze sweep across the horizon. In the distance, a ridge of hills, blue and serene, beckons. Somewhere beyond them, farmers will need your counsel on defending granaries, abbots will request your aid in rebuilding walls, and merchants will whisper of trade routes that must be reopened. Setting your cloak against the chill dew, you stride northward along the dusty road. Wheels of carts churn pebbles into the air, sending tiny storms of stone and dirt dancing around your boots. A passing caravan of merchants greets you with raised hands, a swirl of colour as fabrics billow, horses' bells tinkle like laughter, and the pungent aroma of exotic spices mingles with the scent of oak and humus. One merchant, a tall man swathed in saffron robes, bows low and offers you a vial of amber oil. "For your wounds," he says, voice smooth as honey. "It will soothe both body and spirit." You accept with a nod, the vial's contents catching sunlight like liquid gold. As you travel, the countryside's drama unfolds in vibrant scenes. A school of children chasing a goat along a creek, their laughter tinkling like chimes. A group of woodcutters felling ancient pines, the scent of sawdust weaving through the air. A shepherd crouched by his flock, his dog corralling sheep with silent mastery. Each vignette pulses with life, reminders that peace is an ongoing act of tending and caretaking. By midday, the road climbs steeply into Ashvale, where ruins of an old watchtower stand sentinel. You dismount, hands brushing the moss-covered stones, and close your eyes to listen. Gulls calling from distant cliffs, wind whispering through broken battlements, and something beneath it all, the quiet heartbeat of land healing itself. Marga flutters behind you, inspecting cracks in the masonry. This tower could guide traders for decades more, she muses, with repairs of course. Perhaps the Crown will fund its restoration. Her excitement is contagious, and soon you're counting stone by stone, planning scaffolding and labour. Further on, you encounter a peat bog where local villagers harvest fuel. The air here is damp and musky, each breath tasting of ancient humus and bracken. You help push a wooden barge laden with cut peat, working shoulder to shoulder with rugged folk whose calloused hands know both hardship and hope. Their stories, of runaway beasts, of lost loves, of miracles in prayer, drift like smoke through your mind, weaving into the grander narrative you carry forward. As dusk approaches, you set camp in a grove of silver-barked aspens whose leaves tremble in the fading light. The sky blazes with sunset, lavender streaks, fiery orange flames and deep indigo shadows. You gather around a crackling fire, slices of roasted venison, bowls of thick barley porridge, mugs of spiced cider, and share tales of your journey thus far. Brenna, polishing her sword, recounts the duel that birthed her legend in Harrenhal, a narrow victory won with honour, not bloodlust. Arvid, cheeks flushed, speaks of the first time he heard a child laugh again after the siege, a sound that chased the nightmares from his slumber. Marga, cheeks aglow in firelight, proclaims her next venture, a spice caravan that will circle the realm, trading saffron for silk. Above you, the stars emerge, each a pinprick of hope against the canvas of night. You lean back against a weathered log, senses alive to every whisper of wind, every crackle of flame, every shared breath around the fire. Your thoughts drift to Harrenwood, the next duchy to the north, where winter stores must be stockpiled and the abbey's bells repaired. The path ahead is winding, filled with tasks both great and small, but you feel the strength of companions and country behind you. Together, you will kindle the realm's fires anew. With the embers glowing low and the night's hush settling over the grove, you close your eyes, heart steady beneath the sky's silent vigil. Dawn will bring new duties, new alliances, and new chapters in the tapestry you're weaving. But for this moment, you rest, knowing that tomorrow the road calls once more. The first light of dawn unfurls across the ridge like a pale banner, illuminating the ordnance and outhouses of Harrenwood's outskirts. You rouse to the scent of pine and frost-kissed soil, boots stiff with dew and purpose. Around you, camp followers stoke embers of last night's fire, coaxing them into soft flames that will warm morning porridge and pale ale alike. Shards of amber light catch in the eyes of your companions. Brenna, inspecting the edge of her sword blade. Marga, counting coins meant for winter stores. Arvid, bending to whistle encouragement to a warhorse too sore to stir. And Brother Kalen, mapping the sky's shifting hues in silent prayer. You shoulder your pack, a weathered leather satchel crackling with parchments, coins, and a vial of the merchant's amber oil tucked inside. The path ahead winds through fir groves whose needles glint like emerald rain, their boughs whispering in the breeze. Somewhere beyond that veil of green lies Harrenwood Abbey, its stout towers wreathed in mist, guardians of grain and hope for the northern duchies. Today's task is clear. Inspect their granaries, ensure enough stores to last the winter, and repair broken threshold stones before the first frost. Your steps carry you through a stand of young firs, their trunks slender as spears, each one dusted in the morning's hush. The crunch of needles underfoot is a quiet chorus, broken by the occasional crow's caw or the distant thrum of hammers as woodsmen fell timber for repairs. You pause at a mossy knoll, lifting a hand to the wind. In its breath, you catch the tang of sawdust and the faint perfume of warmed pine resin, a reminder that industry and nature walk hand in hand in these wild reaches. Marga strides up beside you, purse clinking, eyes bright with schemes. "I've spoken with the Abbey's steward," she says in a hush, voice buoyant. "They expect to ration barley and oats through January, but their stores sag under the weight of vermin. We'll propose new granary traps. Woven wicker tunnels baited with charred grain will lure mice into one-way halls. Simple, but effective." She grins, the prospect of combining craft and coin lighting her features. Ahead, the Abbey's outer walls rise from the ground like ancient ramparts of ivory. Their stonework, grey and silent, bears the scars of storms and siege alike. Ivy clings to the lower courses, tendrils brushing the ground in silent salute. A heavy wooden gate, reinforced with iron bands, yawns open at your approach. Beyond it lies a courtyard of cobbles washed smooth by 1,000 pilgrim feet. Monks in grey habits move about in quiet tasks, tending gardens, repairing cloaks, sharpening scythes for the fields. You approach the steward, a lean man named Giles, whose eyes hold the keenness of a hawk. His hands are calloused from ledger and shovel alike. "Welcome," he says, bowing slightly. "Your presence honours us. Come, see the northern granary." He leads you through a half-lit corridor where vaulted arches frame scenes of harvest, painted sheaves of wheat, stylized sunbursts, and cherubic figures clutching sheaves. Each fresco's colours are faded, yet their message endures. Sustenance is sacred here. At the granary, you find sacks of barley stacked 3 tiers high, seams patched with coarse thread. The air is dry and straw-scented, the dim light casting long shadows between the pillars. 100 sacks sag under the grain's weight, some torn at the seams, grains spilling like pale rivers across the floor. You crouch to inspect the heaped mound, lifting a handful of barley. Gleaming in the hearth's glow, each grain glints like a coin doubled in hope. Brother Caelan kneels beside you, tracing a track in the spilled grain. Tiny footprints. "Mice," he murmurs, their numbers easily into the dozens. You nod, eyes narrowing on the exits where the scurrying critters slip behind support beams. With a sigh, you note the design of this storeroom. The low ceiling prevents ladders, funnels at the rear hinder movement, and the wooden beams offer no hiding place for granaries. Ideal except for that one oversight. No intermediate chamber to trap vermin before they reach the main stores. Together you patch the seams with extra cloth and beeswax, borrowed from the Abbey's apiary. Brenna hefts wooden planks salvaged from old wagons to build elevated platforms, raising the sacks off the damp floor. Arvid strings fine wire, donated by the local blacksmith, across the lower voids, acting as a sieve. Grain will fall through, but mice will be held at bay. You and Brother Caelan fashion bait boxes from leftover wood, each one designed like a little labyrinth. One entry, no exit. By midday, the granary looks reborn, sealed more tightly, raised on pilings, and ringed with humane traps. Giles runs his fingers along a plank, nodding in approval. "You have saved us months of grain," he says, voice hushed in gratitude. "May your guidance be remembered by every child who lives because of your care." You smile, awareness settling in your chest that care itself can be as potent as the sword. Leaving the granary, you follow Giles to the Abbey's refectory, a vast hall of long tables where monks dine in silence, voices broken only by the scrape of spoons and the crackle of fire. Bowls of pottage, loaves of rye, and jugs of watered wine line the centre table. You gather with the monks, sharing a simple meal and your plans for further repairs. Threshold stone resettings to keep winter winds at bay, roofing timbers recoated with tar to repel moisture, and drainage channels dug to lead spring floods away from cellars. Discussion runs long, each suggestion met with thoughtful nods. The abbot himself joins, a man whose age is written in soft lines around gentle eyes. He listens as you outline a schedule. 3 days for roof work, 2 for drainage trenches, 1 for chapel threshold. He agrees, promising labourers and board for your companions. When the meeting ends, he places a hand on your shoulder. "Your kindness honours God's work," he says, his voice a hymn in itself. Outside, the sky has ripened to a deep cerulean, clouds drifting like ships across a calm sea. You and your company prepare to depart. Brenna inspects her repaired boots. Marga gathers fresh bread and cheese for the road. Arvid polishes a dagger new with pride, and Brother Caelan blesses the winds. Thomas rides alongside in a small cart, his shoulder now strong enough to grip reins. As you step through the Abbey's gates, you glance back at the soaring spires, their grey stones bright under the sun's caress. This bastion of faith and food will now face winter's challenges fortified, an enduring testament to what care and craft can achieve. The road to Silverditch beckons next, where merchants await safe passage, and a festival of lights is rumoured to chase away midwinter gloom. With the scent of pine in your nostrils and hope in your heart, you set forth, another chapter of rebuilding written in steps across the land. Your companions fall into stride, laughter rising in easy harmony, and the world seems to lean closer, listening for the promise in your tread. The road from Harrenwood winds downhill, curving through stands of ashen maple whose leaves burn in autumn's final blaze, crimson, gold, and umber. The sun hangs low, casting long shadows that reach for your boots like longing hands. Each step forward carries the lingering scent of pine and barley, mingled now with hints of wood smoke as distant hearth fires flicker awake. Your company strides in easy formation. Brenna's gaze sweeps the horizon, ever watchful. Marga's purse jingles with the promise of commerce. Arvid hums a soft tune learned from travelling bards, and Brother Caelan's prayers drift like incense on the breeze. Thomas rides alongside, his wound well healed, smiling as the world unfolds in new possibility. 30 miles east lies Silverditch, a town nestled where the Silver River forks around a rocky islet, its streamlets tinkling like laughter over smooth pebbles. It's said the town's wealth grows from silver panning and dye vats that turn wool the deep hue of twilight. But today, Silverditch prepares for its annual Festival of Lights, a mid-autumn celebration when lanterns float on the river, illuminating both water and spirit. As you crest a rise, the town's spires come into view, a cluster of whitewashed buildings crowned with timbered roofs, smoke spiralling from chimneys like lazy serpents. The river glints in the afternoon light, and already hundreds of lanterns bob in the currents near the upstream fords. Bells toll in the distant watchtower, summoning townsfolk from fields and workshops. Descending the hill, you pass traders setting up stalls along the riverbank. Sacks of silver ore glint beside jars of indigo dye. Bolts of linen swirl in the breeze next to sacks of spiced nuts. A group of children chase a stray lantern, their laughter tinkling like wind chimes against the current's hum. Marga tugs at your sleeve, eyes alight. This is a merchant's dream. We'll auction off boiled wool cloaks dyed in midnight blue. They sell like wildfire. Brenna, you must see the forged lantern frames. Hand-hammered iron. No cheaper than the king's own smithy. Brenna grins, hefting an iron lantern. A sturdy frame is worth its weight in coin, but a reliable bearing at sea could save a shipwreck. We could redirect these to coastal merchants next season. Arvid joins with a tattered scroll of local rumours. They say a masked figure will lead the lantern procession tonight. Lady of the River, some call her. Legend holds she blesses the boats, ensuring safe passage and buoyant trade. Maybe we should meet her, know our allies. His youth-fueled curiosity radiates with unspent wonder. Brother Caelan raises a hand to bless the river's flow. May these lights guide the souls of the realm. Tonight, let us offer prayers for peace, an anchor against winter's storms. At the bridge's stone archway, you pause. Its carved balustrades depict silver fish leaping through braided vines, symbols of prosperity and perseverance. Below, water laps the rocks, framing the islet where a small shrine perches like a sentinel. A weathered statue of a robed woman, the so-called Lady of the River, stares out, eyes empty yet alive with the promise of watchfulness. You press forward into the heart of Silverditch. The marketplace thrums with energy, minstrels play lutes beneath painted banners, dancers spin in rings of flickering torchlight, and the scent of roasting chestnuts mingles with freshly baked rye. Lantern vendors hawk paper globes adorned with calligraphy and watercolour scenes, cranes, moonlit mountains, and baskets of harvest fruits. A merchant named Alara greets you at her stall, her silver hair braided with strands of indigo thread. "Welcome, travellers. Test these silks, dyed with lac bugs from across the sea. They hold true under moonlight. And may I interest you in spiced candles? Scented with lavender and clove, they will burn bright all night long." Her voice is warm as a hearth, her wares brilliant with hues like deep dusk. You barter for cloaks and candles, trading coins for craftsmanship. As twilight bleeds into dusk, the lanterns are readied. Along the banks, families line the water's edge, eyes shining in anticipatory glow. Silver buckets full of floating lanterns are passed to eager hands. Marga instructs a group of children, fitting them with unbreakable frames she commissioned from Brenna. "Tie your wish to the lantern," she says, voice soft. "Let the river carry it to the lady's shrine, and she will heed your heart." The children whisper wishes, health for sick parents, bountiful harvests, the safe return of far-off kin, before launching their lanterns onto the rippling surface. You wander to the bridge, where the statue presides over the ceremony. A hush falls. Then, from the street beyond, a figure in white robes steps forward, a tall woman wearing a mask of polished silver. Her presence hushes even the river's lap. A hush falls as all lanterns alight in unison, candles flaring within their paper vessels. The masked lady raises both arms, and for a moment the world seems suspended between star and stream. Then she speaks, voice resonant through the hush. let our hearts be lights against the dark. May our bonds shine brighter than any shadow." She tosses a silver wreath into the current, a ring of laurel leaves bound with moonflower petals. As it floats downstream, lanterns drift in its wake, their candles flickering with borrowed wind. You feel a hush settle in your chest, a quiet of awe and unity. Arvid's eyes glisten as he watches the procession. "I think I understand now why they gather here. It's not just beauty, it's a pact. Each flame is a promise, a pledge to bear light in the coming season." He breathes out in wonder. Brenna clasps Marga's shoulder. "Tomorrow, we'll inspect the fords and ensure safe passage for winter supply caravans. But tonight, we stand together under these lights." Brenna's usual stoicism softens into warmth. Brother Kalen steps closer to you. "Even in war's aftermath, joy binds us. Remember this night when cold nights come. Let these lights remind you that hope flows on, even when the river runs dark." He offers a prayer, and nearby monks echo his words in low, melodic tones. As the lanterns drift beyond sight, carried into the night's embrace, you linger on the bridge's balustrade. Your senses hum with warmth, the glow on your face, the soft crackle of dying embers from festival fires, the murmur of voices united in wonder. In the hush that follows, you lift your gaze to the moon's silver disk rising above the town, its pale light painting the world in muted hues. The path back to Harrenhal and beyond stretches before you, roads to fortify, alliances to forge, stories to tell. Yet for now, you remain a silent watcher on the bridge, heart buoyed by the lantern's voyage, reminders that every promise set afloat carries the power to light the darkest waters. And tomorrow you will rise with that same resolve, carrying the festival's flame into the realm's continued renewal. At dawn's first breath, you awaken on the outskirts of Silverditch. The festival's embers cool to smouldering coals and lantern frames stacked like silent sentinels at the water's edge. The river's surface, once a stage for hundreds of flickering lights, is now a glassy mirror reflecting the pale gold of morning haze. You stretch, joints creaking like an old gate, and let the scent of damp reeds and wood smoke wash over you, a reminder that every celebration's glow is born of humble fires. Your companions assemble around a makeshift breakfast, strips of cold venison warmed by residual heat, bowls of honey-sweetened porridge, and mugs of spiced cider, whose aroma trails like laughter through the crisp air. Brenna meticulously sharpens her blade against a whetstone, every pass a whispered promise of vigilance. Marga polishes a newly acquired lantern frame, coins jingling as she balances plans for future trade. Arvid massages the warhorse's flanks, murmuring encouragement, while Brother Kalen lifts a small chalice of spring water in silent thanks. You sip the cider and let its warmth bloom in your chest. Today's road stretches westward toward the salt flats of Brinehold Marsh, where fishing villages cling to the estuary and winter's grip turns tidal sluices into frozen gates. You'll need to inspect the levees, broker agreements with local fishers, and ensure that salted catch will flow to inland markets when snow seals other routes. The path follows the Silver River upstream, narrowing as it twists through copses of alder and willow. Their roots tangle at the water's edge, snaring driftwood until spring floods will set it free. The ground here is rich and loamy, dotted with wild garlic whose pungent aroma wafts whenever you brush past. A breeze stirs the cattails, their whispering reeds a lullaby against the river's low murmur. By midday, you crest a low embankment and behold Brinehold Marsh. The landscape sprawls in muted greens and browns, dotted with raised wooden platforms where stilted huts perch above the soggy ground. Smoke coils from driftwood fires, mingling with the tang of brine and brackish mud. Flocks of shorebirds wheel overhead, their cries sharp as flint. A flotilla of fishing skiffs drifts near a boardwalk, where salt-rimed barrels stand in neat rows. Fishers in oilskins crouch over drying racks, salting herring and anchovies for the winter's trade. Their calloused hands work with the precision of scribes copying holy texts, each grain of salt depositing a promise of preservation. Marga strides to the nearest hut, where a matronly fisherwoman named Brinna presides over a steaming cauldron of fish stew. Steam coils in aromatic spirals, carrying the dual scents of pickled garlic and smoked eel. Brynna offers you a bowl ladled into a wooden trenchers, and you taste the brine-kissed sweetness of the catch, soothed by the cauldron's warmth. To winter's bounty, she toasts, and you echo the sentiment, the stew's robustness grounding your spirits. Across the boardwalk you find the levee guardhouse, a stout structure of oak beams and wattle walls. Inside, a lean watchman named Oren tracks scribbles in a ledger. Tide tables, stockpiles of salted fish, supplies of lime to seal breaches. His blue eyes glance up from rimless spectacles when you enter. Concerns for the floodgates, he says, voice low as the river's current. Last spring's gales tore through the north wall. We patched it, but winter's ice can breathe like frost giants. I need new shoring timber and creosote. You nod, tracing the scarred beams with your fingertips. Their wood grain is rough, each knot a marker of age and strain. Recalling Brenna's timber repurposing in Ashvale, you offer to send for ready planks from Harrenwood's smithy, treated with pitch in Harrenhal's forges, enough to fortify the levee before freeze-up. Brynnen calls from the doorway, her gait unsteady as she sways on the slick boards. In her hand, she clutches a woven reed basket. Supplies for your journey, she explains. Bundles of dried seaweed for fertilizer, jars of capers pickled in seawater brine, and waxed fish oil for lamp fuel. You accept gratefully, the weight of the basket a reminder that the land's smallest offerings often matter most. Often a sudden gust rattles the marsh's reeds, and ice blossoms along the river's edge, delicate flowers of frost eager to claim the water. You exhale, the vapour of your breath a visible note in the chill air. Dawn is retreating, but winter approaches, and each moment counts. Brother Kalen bends to scoop handfuls of marsh water into his flask. Bless these waters, he murmurs, voice melding with the wind. May they grant safe passage and generous tides. You sense his prayer drifting across the flatlands, a plea carried on the marsh's breaths. As you prepare to depart, Brenna inspects the shoring timber you've ordered in thought. Imagined planks strong enough to hold back ice and tide. Her expression is resolute. Next stop, the cliffs of Gullreach, she declares. The fishermen will need new jetties built from those trees. The way ahead is clear. From levees to seawalls, every structure in this realm relies on the thread of care you weave. Gathering your belongings, you take one last look at Brinehold Marsh, its wooden labyrinth lit by morning's grey glow, its water half frozen and half alive. You step onto the boardwalk, the planks creaking beneath your boots, and set your face westward, toward the salt-sprayed cliffs where seagulls wheel against battered watchtowers. As you leave, the marsh's chorus follows. The gulls' piercing calls, the creek's whisper, and the low groan of the levee's timbers. Each sound is a thread in the tapestry you continue to stitch, a realm renewed one board, one lantern, one grain of salt at a time. You walk on, heart warmed by stew and fellowship, senses alert to the glimmers of hope in every frozen ripple. The wind off the ocean carries a sharp, salt-laced bite as you crest the final rise toward the cliffs of Gullreach. Seabirds wheel overhead, gulls, terns, and the occasional lonely albatross, circling the granite promontory like sentinels. Below, waves crash against jagged rocks, spraying plumes of white foam that glitter in the morning sun. Your boots crunch over weathered stones and hardy tufts of dune grass, each step echoing the promise of new beginnings etched in the salt air. Your companions trail behind. Brenna's cloak flutters like a dark banner. Marga's satchel swings with jingling coin pouches. Arvid's young face splits in a grin as he studies the cliffs, and Brother Kalen murmurs a prayer for safe passage over screaming gulls and treacherous paths. Thomas, his arm now strong and unscarred, carries a length of coiled rope, an essential tool for securing fishing nets and fortifying cliffside jetties. At the cliff's edge, you pause to survey the settlement below. Gullreach perches precariously on wooden stilts driven into the rocky shore, its cluster of shacks and huts clad in weather-beaten cedar and thatch. Fishing boats bob in the churning inlet, hulls painted in faded reds and blues, while nets heavy with the morning's catch are spread across the sand to dry in the crisp breeze. The scent of brine and smoked fish hangs thick in the air, mingled with the earthy aroma of kelp-drenched dunes. A walkway, planks roughly hewn and bound with iron bands, descends the cliffside in a zigzag pattern, leading to a small dock where fishermen tend to barrels of salted cod. Below, tide pools scatter beneath the wooden beams, each one a miniature world of starfish, anemones, and crustaceans clinging to the submerged supports. You tighten the straps of your satchel and begin the descent, Brenna at your side to steady the narrow path. Marga hums a sea shanty under her breath, a tune she claims will charm the locals. Arvid follows, eyes shining with curiosity as he traces patterns of lichen on the cliff face. Brother Calen pauses at a rocky outcrop, touching the stone reverently. "These cliffs have stood longer than any king's reign," he says softly. "May they lend us their strength." Halfway down, you encounter the first of the jetties, a platform of timbers elevated above swirling currents, its supports worn smooth by the sea's ceaseless assault. A handful of fishers pause in their work as you approach, nodding respectful greetings. Their leader, a tall man with salt and pepper stubble and sea-worn features named Jorvik, steps forward. "Welcome to Gullreach," he rumbles, voice as rough as barnacle-encrusted rock. "The tides have been treacherous this season, ice floes drifting in sooner than we expected. We worry for the jetties and the boats they support." You nod, scanning the platform's supports. Several beams show deep grooves worn by drifting ice, and the fastenings are corroded with salt. "We'll need to replace the worn timbers with oak from Harrenhal's groves," you say, "and reinforce the pilings with iron braces. With proper shoring, they'll resist both driftwood and ice." Marga unfurls her maps, tracing the route back to the forest. "I'll arrange for the timber," she says. "We'll need to bring up tar and pitch to seal the supports, and perhaps send a team to knit seaweed bundles around the pilings. Kelp mats can buffer the impact of ice." Arvid, eager for hands-on work, steps forward. "Teach me," he says, pointing to a beam marked by deep gouges. "I want to learn how to shape the braces." You nod, handing him a hammer and a small coil of iron strapping. As the rest of your party joins Jorvik's crew, you step back to survey the inlet. Brinehold Marsh was the realm's pantry. Now Gullreach must become its protector. Every beam replaced, every brace fitted, every net mended is a stitch in the tapestry of recovery. You breathe in the salty air, feeling the spray on your cheeks, and steel yourself for the labour ahead. The roar of the surf blends with the voices of fishers singing as they work, an anthem of resilience that carries across chafing waves. At the cliff's base, fishermen bring up a battered skiff, its hull streaked with barnacles and its bottom scratched by hidden rocks. You study its planks, nodding at each crack and split. "This hull needs patching and recalked seams," you call up. "Bring it ashore, and we'll employ caulking oakum and fresh tar. Thomas, you and I will handle that," demonstrating the art of shipwrighting with the Abbey's tar and your skill with a rope. The party moves with swift purpose. Brenna oversees the replacement of pilings. Marga negotiates trades for tar and pitch with the local trader. Arvid learns to bend iron, strapping into braces, and Brother Calen blesses each completed beam. The midday sun shifts, lighting up the mist behind crashing waves in radiant arcs. You descend to the skiff, laying out caulking tools and oakum. Thomas steadies the vessel as you work side by side, pressing oakum into the seams and daubing fresh tar. The pungent scent of heated pitch fills your nostrils, and the heat warms your hands even in the ocean breeze. Each pass of the mallet seals the hull against leaks that could spell disaster in winter waters. Above, coordinate calls echo, "Brace at 12 o'clock, secure with 2 iron nails. Crack the old beam, careful, it might slip." Each instruction is met with nods, hammers, and sweat. By dusk's arrival, several jetties stand fortified, and the skiff's hull gleams darkly with fresh tar. The fishermen gather, salt-crusted faces breaking into relieved smiles as they step onto the newly stabilised boards. Jorvik raises a tankard of ale. "To our new allies," he toasts, voice thick with gratitude. "May your path be as steadfast as these jetties." You return the toast, letting the ale's froth cool your parched throat. The setting sun paints the horizon in streaks of purple and gold, and the gulls wheel homeward, their cries echoing against the cliffs. Standing on the repaired jetty, you feel the solid oak beneath your boots, the spray on your face, and sense the unity of land and sea, labour and hope. Tomorrow you'll travel inland toward the heart of the realm's trade routes, but tonight you stand where ocean meets rock, where resilience is hewn from timber and tempered by salt. And as the lanterns flicker to life along the boardwalk, welcoming night's calm, you know that each harbour you fortify, each settlement you aid, brings the realm one step closer to enduring peace, and you one step closer to home. The dawn wind off the sea still carries a briny bite when you break camp on Gullreach's jetty, your boots ringing hollow on the freshly laid timbers. Sunlight gilds the swirling mist over the inlet, turning salt spray into suspended diamonds in the air. Behind you, the repaired jetties stand like stalwart sentinels, oaken pilings braced against ice and tide. Ahead, the road stretches inland, a ribbon of dirt winding through heather and gorse toward the broad trading thoroughfare known as the King's Causeway. Your party moves with deliberate purpose. Brenna's strides are long and confident, each footfall echoing the strength she's become. Marga's tunic pockets are filled with lantern frames and salted capers ready for barter. Arvid trails a few paces behind, eyes bright, tracing the landscape as though mapping it in his mind's eye. Brother Kaelan murmurs psalms about wind and water, blessing the path between land and sea. Tomas leads the way with his repaired rope coiled over his shoulder, voice humming a fisherman's refrain learned in the docks. As the causeway rises over a marshy ford, caravan traffic swells. Ox-drawn wagons crammed with salted fish, barrels of indigo dye, bolts of coarse wool, and sacks of summer's last grain. Wheels churn mud into the air in rhythmic clouds, and drivers, leathered faces like weathered maps, call to each other in clipped dialects. The air hums with commerce, creaking axles, the snort of horses, merchants hawking wares, and the distant clang of anvil strikes from a roadside smithy. You pause at a crossroads where three routes converge, north to Harrenwood, east back toward Silverditch, and west toward Harrenhal. A carved milepost points 15 leagues to the capital's granaries and more icons. A crossed hammer and quill marking the scriptorium in Ravenscar, a chalice for the Pilgrim's Hospice in Rosevine, and a silver fish for Brinehold markets. The sign's fingerboard trembles in the breeze, as if uncertain which way prosperity truly lies. Marga steps forward, tilting her head to inspect the carvings. "We should head west," she declares, "and deliver these salted capers to Harrenhal's taverns. They'll fetch top price now that the granaries are secure. From there, we can plan the final leg to Ravenscar and beyond." She tucks the capers into her pack with satisfied hum. Brenna nods, tightening her gauntlets. "The capital could use our counsel. Rumour has it the scriptorium scrolls were damaged in last winter's floods. Their demand for new vellum might strain the Abbey's supplies. We could escort a caravan of prepared hides, ensure the realm's records remain unbroken." Her gaze flicks to the dusty causeway, where merchants negotiate fiercely over grain prices and salted pork. Arvid's eyes light at the mention of the scriptorium. "And I might learn the art of calligraphy," he adds. "Imagine writing these tales for future generations, scripts that speak of rebuilding and resolve." His youthful ambition blooms like a wildflower in spring. Brother Kaelan clasps his hands, staff in hand. "Then let us bless this causeway," he says. "May every step we take be guided by mercy and wisdom, for the road itself holds the stories of countless souls." He scatters a handful of blessed salt into the road's dust, a silent invocation for safe passage. Setting off, you fall into the company of a merchant's convoy, a chain of 5 lorries drawn by oxen, each wagon's tarpaulin emblazoned with the livery of House Fenwick. Drivers eye you with respectful curiosity as you walk beside their wagons, Brenna offering a curt nod, and Arvid sharing a smile that warms even the surliest of caravan guards. Mid-morning heat climbs, and dust swirls in golden eddies around your legs. You pause to drink at a spring bubbling beside the causeway, cool water knotting in your throat like velvet rope. Nearby, a herd of drovers moves cattle through a shallow crossing, coppery bells tinkling around steers' necks. The animals wade placidly, nostrils flaring at the water's chill, and you feel the pulse of life in each breath and hoofbeat. As the convoy approaches a ruined toll house, its thatch collapsed, walls blackened by fire, you decide to stop. The tollkeeper's ledgers lie scattered in the dust, pages ink-smeared and half-burned. A quick inspection reveals the culprit. Bandit raids in the waxing lull between harvest and winter. Brenna and you inspect crude axe marks on the door's beams. Arvid gathers broken seal wax from the ground, and Marga salvages a fragment of parchment bearing a half-seen name, Red Talon Company. Red Talon. Brother Kaelan offers a blessing over the burnt timbers, calling for healing of both wood and spirit. You draw a plan in the dirt, jury-rigged patch for the door, posting of sentries to deter further raids, and a dispatch to the nearest garrison at Lock's Folly for reinforcements. The drivers murmur their assent, relief softening their faces. Noon brings a sudden storm, a wall of grey clouds rolling in from the west. Thunder echoes across the open plains, and rain lashes the causeway in needles of cold. You spring into action. Brenna and the drivers lash tarpaulins across exposed wagons. Marga secures the salted jars in oilskins. Arvid fans a small brazier to keep scrolls and parchments dry. Brother Kalen presses his hooded robes against the rain, chanting for calm. In the storm's heart, you glimpse the power and peril of these roads. Commerce can bind a realm, but too often it exposes wounds. Yet as the wind wails around the ruined toll house, you press your cloak tighter and remember your purpose: to stitch together a tapestry of renewal, one repaired structure, one secured trade, one blessing at a time. When the rain subsides as swiftly as it arrived, the world glistens: bright stones, emerald grass, polished leather. The convoy resumes its march, wheels leaving deep ruts in newly softened earth. The storm has cleansed the dust from wagon sheets and washed the writ of bandits from the toll house's threshold. You walk on, horizon beckoning. Behind you, the ruined toll house stands patched and blessed. Before you, the road to Harrenhal unwinds like a ribbon of providence. Each step forward is both an ending and a beginning, completion of one duty and the prelude to another. The sun emerges, casting long shadows that stretch toward the western hills, illuminating the path on which your story, and the realms, will continue to unfold. The hewn stone walls of Harrenhal loom ahead, their ramparts crowned with fluttering pennons in hues of azure and gold. You step from the muddy causeway into the city's barred gate, the clatter of hooves on cobblestone echoing against the sweeping arch. The air shifts here, less brine and pine, more warmed earth and butchered hides, underscored by the hum of voices bargaining in tongues from across the realm. Your party fans out in practice formation, each member attuned to the city's rhythms. Brenna lingers at your flank, her gaze tracing the rampart's crenellations as if plotting unseen passages. Marga drifts toward the merchant stalls lining the main thoroughfare, eyes sparkling at bolts of dyed wool and crates of citrus imported from southern isles. Arvid pauses to admire carved signboards above smithies, his curiosity unbridging the mechanical to the poetic. Brother Kalen leads you toward the abbey's gate, murmuring blessings over shop fronts and smithies alike. Thomas carries the salted capers and lacquered lanterns you brought from Silverditch, offering samples to passing townsfolk who admire their sheen. Harrenhal's heart is the Grand Market Plaza, a quadrangle framed by two-storey arcades carved from warm-hued sandstone. Each archway shelters vendors of curious wares, stewing cauldrons of spiced pear jellies, whose steam perfumes the air, casks of foaming ale from northern breweries, and tables stacked with razor-edged scalpels and bone-handled needles, tools for the healers in the abbey's infirmary. The ground is a mosaic of worn stone, smoothed by countless feet. Every step you take pulses with the city's collective heartbeat. You guide your companions toward a marble fountain at the plaza's centre, a sculpted recreation of Fenwick's ancestral crest, a silver prancing stallion rearing upon cascading water. The fountain's spray arcs in shimmering prisms, droplets catching the morning light like liquid diamonds. Local children dart across its basin's rim, giggling as their bare feet splash in the cool current. Marga positions her wares at a vacant stall nearby, lantern frames beside jars of preserved capers, their briny sheen attesting to Silverditch's salty breeze. Already curious customers gather, a brewer who dreams of lighting his cellar without risking kitchens, and a vintner who finds the caper's tart bite perfect for winter stews. Deals are struck in nods and coin clinks, and soon your satchel lightens even as laughter brightens Marga's cheeks. Meanwhile, Brenna escorts you through a side gate into the barracks district. Rows of barracks built long ago by the city's founders to house its defenders. Each building is marked by the rising sun emblem, an homage to the dawn's promise against besieging powers. Soldiers in polished breastplates emerge, their boots scuffing gravel, helmets tucked beneath arms. They glance at your seconded status and offer respectful bows. In the courtyard of the Blackwood Barracks, a seasoned captain named Isabel waits, her stance rigid but her eyes warm as embers. She gestures to a training yard where recruits practice spear drills. Our ranks swelled after Harrenwood's troubles, she says, voice low and steady. I need your insight on drilling my men, improving coordination and morale. If we face bandits or worse, they must hold a line without faltering. You nod, recalling the chaos of the Ridge's trap, and agree to demonstrate new formation tactics drawn from your battlefield experience. Arvid volunteers eagerly, leading a line of recruits clad in mismatched armour through pike drills. Under your guidance, the soldiers shift from tight phalanx to staggered wedge, the cadence of their steps synchronised to Brenner's sharp counts. Dust rises in clouds, each command sharpened by the clang of steel on shields. You sense morale lift as they master the manoeuvre, every footfall a note in a growing anthem of unity. With the drills complete, you escort Isabel back into the city's spine, where the Abbey of St. Ciaran beckons with its soaring spire. Its bells toll noon, summoning the faithful to vespers and the hungry to the communal board. The Abbey's infirmary, a crucible of healing, stands ready, its courtyard bright with window glass, each pane a beacon for light to reach the wounded within. Inside, infirmarians tend to fevered peasants and soldiers' scars alike. You present the scalpels and needles, Marga's deft dealing securing both sterile instruments and suture threads. The lead healer, Sister Aveline, greets you with gratitude. These will save lives, she murmurs, her hands steady as she demonstrates proper sterilisation in boiling water and herb-infused vinegar. You help Colonna, a young lay brother, set a fractured forearm using the craftsmanship from Silverditch's salted fish oil to soothe joints, and later apply comfrey poultices for their regenerative virtues. Each patient's sigh of relief is a chord in the healing choir, every moan soothed by compassion's refrain. Exiting into the Abbey's cloister garden, you inhale the mingled scents of lavender and rosemary, herbs grown for both balm and tea. Brother Calen stops by a carved stone bench, reciting a blessing for the city's continued peace. You sense in his words a quiet pact, that where steel fails, kindness prevails. As afternoon wanes, the sun casts long shadows across the city's winding alleys. You regroup with your companions at the plaza's fountain, each face reflecting fatigue softened by fulfillment. Together, you turn toward the western gates, road signs pointing to Ravenscar's famed scriptorium and beyond to the kingdom's heart. The tiles beneath your feet hum with storied pasts and unwritten futures. You shoulder your cloak, feeling its weight as both burden and privilege, to carry hope's light into every corner of the realm. Your hooved stride falls in step with the city's pulse, every breath a vow to bind these threads of recovery into a tapestry of enduring unity. The road west from Harrenhal unfurls beneath your boots like a spell woven in sandstone and dust. As you leave the city's gates behind, the afternoon sun ignites the horizon in molten gold, setting distant peaks aflame. Before you lies the low ridge that shields Ravenscar's famed scriptorium, and beyond it, the fertile vale of Thorn, where scholars and scribes gather as pilgrims to knowledge. The path dips into a shallow valley, lined by hedgerows thick with blackthorn and hawthorn. Their tangled branches bear the shriveled fruit of autumn, dark berries that stain skin like ink. A chorus of songbirds trill unseen, their melodies weaving through the brambles. Each breath carries the pungent scent of crushed leaves and earth, enriched by the promise of winter's harvest now safely stored. Your companions follow in silent reverence, senses attuned to the land's hush. Brenna scans the ridgeline for ambush points, hand resting on her sword's hilt as though greeting an old friend. Marga finger threads her parcels of vellum and preserves, calculating trade routes in the margin of her mind. Arvid, his satchel brimming with recovered scrolls, pauses to sketch leaf patterns on his sketchpad, eager to capture nature's own calligraphy. Brother Calen murmurs a litany, each word a step towards sanctifying this road of learning. Soon, the path narrows between moss-covered stone walls, each one draped in lichen and crowned with the carved emblems of previous generations. A weathered plaque marks the boundary. Welcome to Ravenscar, city of ink and illumination. The words, once crisp, now bear the freckles of time, but their message resounds. Here, the realm's story is preserved and renewed. Through an arched gatehouse you pass into a town of spired rooftops and narrow lanes, paved with cobblestones polished like river stones. Lanterns hang from wrought iron brackets, each shaped like an open book, its pages unfurled to catch the breeze. The air is alive with the rustle of parchment and the murmur of pens scratching vellum. Ahead, the scriptorium rises, a cathedral of stone and glass, its tall windows filled with stained panes depicting scenes of creation, scribes illuminating manuscripts by candlelight, scholars debating under vaulted ceilings, and ancient texts unfurling across blank pages like Genesis writ in ink. You step through the great oaken doors, greeted by the hush of possibility. Inside, long rows of oak tables stretch into soft focus, each one occupied by hooded figures bent over quills and candles. The scent of beeswax from candles, iron gall ink, and worn leather bindings mingles in a heady perfume. Above, pointed arches soar, their ribs converging like hands in prayer, and the light filters through stained glass in kaleidoscopic shards. At the head of the hall stands the head librarian, a wizened scholar named Master Orin, whose robes are dusted with parchment fibres. His eyes, bright behind round spectacles, reflect both curiosity and relief when he sees your approach. "Welcome, travellers," he intones, voice soft as vellum. "Our shelves lie bare. The winter's damp spoiled our finest parchments, and our inks ran like tears. We need fresh supplies and skilled hands to restore our archives. Will you lend your aid?" You step forward, unstrapping a bundle, prepared hide sheets cured with alum and chalk, each one smooth as pond-thick ice. Marga's trading finally bore fruit here. Her caravan delivered these precious blanks. Arvid's eyes brighten. He runs a fingertip along the surface, leaving a faint trail of ash. "I've always dreamed of a page that begins the next chapter," he whispers. Master Orin nods, gesturing to an assistant who brings over inkwells and quills. He assigns Brenna to oversee the parchment distribution, ensuring fairness among the dozen illuminators huddled beneath candle sconces. Marga and you coordinate ledger entries for each delivery, stamping receipts with the scriptorium's seal. Arvid is offered a lectern and quill, where he inscribes the opening line of a recovered chronicle, his script steady as he strives for balance between form and flow. Brother Kalen moves among the scribes, offering blessings of clarity to those whose eyes grow weary and whose hands tremble with fatigue. His quiet words seem to steady quills and soothe frayed nerves. By mid-afternoon, the scriptorium hums with renewed vigour. Quills scratch across parchment in staccato rhythms. Candle flames flicker against rows of binding stands, where repaired manuscripts await new leather covers. The grand tomes, histories, bestiaries, treatises on governance, begin to take shape once more under calloused hands guided by faith and fellowship. Outside, the town hums with its own rhythms. Bell chimes signal vespers, bellows sound from the bell founder's workshop where Orin has commissioned a new hour bell engraved with the scriptorium's crest. And the distant clip-clop of carts marks the arrival of fresh charcoal for the ink furnaces. As dusk darkens the high windows, you gather with your companions in the scriptorium's cloister, a shaded courtyard lined with lavender and rosemary bushes. A small brazier burns, its light warm against the encroaching chill. Master Orin joins you, his shoulders bowed by age yet unbowed by hardship. He raises a clay mug of spiced wine. "To your generosity and our shared pursuit of knowledge," he toasts. "May these inks never fade, and these pages remain as steadfast as the bonds we forge." His words hang in the crisp air, a benediction to end a day of creation. You lift your mug, feeling the wine spice stir your senses. Each sip is a promise that in these manuscripts the realm's triumphs and trials will endure beyond seasons and centuries. Night's hush settles over the courtyard, pierced only by the distant tolling of the newly cast bell, a sonorous note that floats over rooftops, inviting all Ravenscar to dream in ink and illumination. And as you walk back through the cloister's arches toward the guest chambers, your heart brims with the quiet pride of one who has helped pen history's next lines. Night drapes itself over Ravenscar like a velvet codex, its inky depths spattered with the pinpricks of lantern-lit windows and the pale shimmer of moonlight on slate roofs. You emerge from the scriptorium's cloister, the echo of Master Orin's bell still resonating through the stone arches, and make your way through narrow lanes that wind between timbered houses. Each doorway spills golden light onto cobbles slick with dew, and you catch the murmur of late-night study and soft laughter behind curtained windows. Your company follows, hushed and reflective after the day's labours. Brenna carries her sword in a casual hold, its hilt seated against her hip like an old companion. Marga's steps are light, her pack empty of trade goods. but her eyes gleam with tomorrow's possibilities. Arvid lingers at the edge of lantern-lit shadows, pausing to observe the interplay of light and dark, every chiaroscuro a lesson in perspective. Brother Calen raises a hand in silent benediction to the night sky, and Thomas adjusts the rope coil over his shoulder, nodding at the stilled manuscript scrolls in his pack. You lead them toward the guest chambers, housed within the former abbey's infirmary, a series of modest cells once occupied by novice healers, now transformed into simple lodging. The building's walls are thick, carved from local stone, and its windows set high in the walls to preserve both privacy and the sanctity of healing. Inside, the narrow corridor is lit by wall sconces holding shallow bowls of oil, their flames guttering against the occasional draught. At the end of the corridor stands your chamber door, its oak surface etched with a carved quill and scroll, an homage to the scribes you aided. You push it open to reveal a modest room, a single four-poster bed draped in woolen blankets, a rough-hewn table stacked with fresh linens, and a basin carved from white marble. A window set in the far wall frames a sliver of star-strewn sky, the moon riding high. You set down your pack, kneeling to draw deep from a water skin lined with mint-infused water, its cool sweetness a salve to parched throats. Brenna unstraps her belt, her armour clinking softly, while Marga rearranges tomorrow's supplies by the table, ledgers, quills, and small pots of ink. Arvid lights a taper, letting its flame illuminate the chamber's nook where he prepares to copy a new chronicle page. Brother Calen kneels by the bed, offering a whispered prayer for restorative sleep, and Thomas checks the latches on the door, ensuring a peaceful night. You rise to the window leaning against its sill. Below, the city's heartbeat slows. Distant bells toll midnight, each ring a heartbeat in the realm's slumber. Through the window, you see clusters of scholars wrapped in cloaks, their breath drifting as wisps of white, huddled in murmured discussion before returning to candles and scrolls. The world feels alive in its quiet, an ensemble of small acts sustained by the promise of dawn. "This place," Brenna says softly, joining you at the sill, "it's different by night, a living manuscript, each soul a sentence in the kingdom's story." You nod, eyes reflecting starlight. "And we are its authors, if only for a time. The deeds we write tonight will echo in halls we'll never see." Marga steps beside you, her hand touching yours. "Rest, friend. Tomorrow we journey to Rosevin Hospice. Marjorie, the caretaker there, awaits supplies of healing salves and fresh poultices. They say the winter's chill brings both illness and despair, and she needs our help." Her words carry weight, reminding you of the mosaic of needs, from scriptorium's parchments to hospice's compassion. Below, a solitary lantern glimmers at a street corner, where a street sweeper arranges brooms and brushes. The man pauses, looking up, and you give a quiet wave. He nods in return, a small gesture binding you in silent camaraderie. A hush falls as the midnight hour wanes. You draw a deep breath, inhaling lavender's faint aroma from a sachet on the table. Gift of the infirmary, letting its calm settle into your chest. Sleep beckons like a well-worn book, pages eager to cradle your thoughts. Before you turn away, your gaze catches a motley lantern, left hanging by a weathered post outside the window. A handmade cage of iron and wood holding a flickering candle. Its light dances against the pale stone wall, a private festival of flame. You recall Silverditch's floating lanterns, the bridge's luminescence guiding hearts across dark waters. Here too a single light holds vigil, its flame unwavering against the night's hush. You step back, words soft as spun wool. May our lights burn bright when dawn arrives, and may our hands be steady when tasks call at first light. Brenna, Marga, Arvid, Brother Calen and Thomas gather beside you, 5 figures bound by purpose and friendship. In their eyes, you see the resolve that led through battle, healing, festival and scholarship. With a gentle nod, you close the window and extinguish the taper's flame, letting darkness envelop the chamber. As you settle into the blanket's warmth, the hush outside deepens, and a sense of peace unfurls like the final lines of a well-written chapter. Sleep finds you swiftly, each breath a promise to rise with the next dawn's scroll, ready to write the realm's next page in acts of mercy, courage, and hope. Dawn's first glow edges the horizon as you rise in the guest chamber's hush, the faint scent of lavender and rosemary still clinging to the cool stone air. Beyond the narrow window, Ravenscar's slate roofs catch pale light, stained glass flickering like captured dawn across narrow lanes. You gather your cloak and pack, checking each strap with deliberate care. Today's path leads south along the Vale of Thorn toward Rosevine Hospice, a sanctuary perched on the banks of the Silver River, where Marjorie, the hospice's devoted caretaker, awaits your aid. The courtyard is quiet as you step outside, dew beading on cobblestones, each drop catching gemstone hues from lanterns still aglow. Brenna joins you, armour exchanged for travel leathers, her boots silent on the stone. Marga appears next, purse-light but eyes full of plans for herbal salves and bandage stocks. Arvid emerges yawning, sketchpad tucked beneath one arm, already eager for scenes to capture. Brother Caelan greets you with a silent nod, and Thomas hefts his repaired rope and satchel of scrolls with practised ease. Together you descend Ravenscar's steps into the market's waking bustle. Bakers wheel carts of hot bread, haze of steam rising as villagers greet the dawn with murmured prayers. You pause at the marble fountain one last time. Its spray dances in morning light, droplets whispering promises of healing and hope. With a final bow you turn southward, the road brimming with potential. The Vale of Thorn unfurls like a green ribbon, fields tilled for winter's grain, groves of walnut and cherry heavy with fruit, hedgerows alive with songbirds. The air is redolent with late summer scents, ripening apples, crushed grass, and the faint tang of river moisture carried on the breeze. Along the route, you pass reapers binding sheaves of barley, their sickles glinting, laughter rising above the rhythm of work. You offer a nod, they wave in greeting, their toil a reminder that life's cycle persists even after war's thunder. As you round a bend, the Silver River glimmers below, its surface a molten ribbon winding through fields. A wooden ferry crosses the water, cables taut against gentle currents. You signal the ferryman, a weathered man named Phelan, who raises his oar in welcome. Brenna steps forward to barter passage, Marga offering salted herring in exchange for fare, while Arvid sketches the ferry's iron pulleys and timber hull. Brother Caelan blesses the crossing, and Tomas unloads supplies from your saddle packs. The ferry glides across, each pole stroke a note in the morning's symphony, water lapping the hull, oar-tapping drumbeats, distant storks calling from reeds. Once on the far bank, you follow a path through willow groves where shafts of light slant through leaves like forged spears of gold. The path climbs gently to a hill, atop which stands Rosevine Hospice. Stone walls entwined with climbing roses, their petals a soft contrast to grey masonry, window boxes spilling lavender and thyme. Marjorie, the hospice's caretaker, waits at the gate, her silver-streaked hair pinned beneath a simple coif, hands dusted with flour and dried herb residue. Her apron bears pockets of lavender sachets and small leather pouches stuffed with comfrey. She greets you with a warm smile that crinkles her eyes, voice soft as worn vellum. "Bless you for coming," she murmurs, guiding you inside. Within the hospice's cool stone halls, the atmosphere is hushed but alive with whispered prayers and the faint rustle of bedding. The infirmary's ward is a line of wide cots, each occupied by souls needing rest, mothers weakened by fever, children blistered with chill's bite, elders frail yet steadfast. The air holds aromas of chamomile, mint, and the sharp tang of iodine from Brother Caelan's flask. You set to work. Brenna assists Marjorie in reinforcing window shutters against winter's draughts, measuring boards, hammering tar-soaked planks, sealing gaps with moss-insulated wadding. Each strike of the mallet rings with purpose, each sealed shutter a vow of warmth for the hospice's inhabitants. Marga organises the storeroom, sacks of oats bound for porridge, jars of honey and crystallised ginger for sore throats, bundles of dried thyme and yarrow for tinctures. She instructs lay sisters on proper inventory rotation, older supplies used first, labels affixed with quill and ink. Arvid helps stitch new linen bandages, his needlework precise as an illuminator's flourish, while Thomas assists in mixing comfrey poultices, stirring thick pastes to soothe bruises and swellings. Brother Caelan moves among the beds, offering blessings of comfort. His soft voice threads through the ward like a lullaby, easing coughs and calming minds. You stand beside him, distributing honeyed water to those too weak to sit, cup pressed to cracked lips, hope reflected in damp eyes. As afternoon sun filters through stained glass windows, blue roses and golden wheat, the ward glows with peace. Within each pane's riot of colour lies a testament that care itself can be as powerful as any blade, that compassion binds communities stronger than war's fury. Marjorie leads you to her office, a small chamber lined with herb charts and pressed flower specimens. On her desk, an open ledger lists those needing nightly care, names tallied beside ailments and recommended cures. You add your contributions, dosages of comfrey, frequency of bandage changes, lamps of oil to keep darkness and fear at bay. She presses a small vial into your hand, a new balm distilled from lavender and beeswax, potent against restlessness. For your journey's weariness, she says, you tuck it among your supplies, grateful for its soothing promise. Before departing, you step into the hospice's garden, where late roses bloom alongside frost-hardy pansies. Patches of kale and winter onions promise sustenance when snows fall. The river flows just beyond a line of silver willows, its steady rush a lullaby to those at rest. Marjorie stands with you, breeze catching her coif. Your kindness will echo here in every heartbeat that steadies and every breath drawn easier. Go now with our blessing, and carry our stories wherever you roam. Her words carry the weight of gratitude that no coin can match. You and your companions bid farewell. Brenna clasps Marjorie's hand in solidarity. Marga offers a pouch of capers in exchange for the lavender balm. Arvid bows with a flourish of his quill case. Brother Kalen blesses the path with holy water, and Thomas lifts a salute. Together you step from the hospice's gate into the eve's golden glow, hearts warmed by the knowledge that healing hands have made a haven of hope. The road ahead leads back to Harrenhal's towers and beyond, to the capital's final halls of power. But tonight, each of you carries the hospice's peace in your souls, a quiet flame that no winter can extinguish, and no shadow can consume. At the pale hush of dawn, you stand atop the western ramparts of Harrenhal, the city unfurling beneath you like a tapestry painted in soft gold and rose-pink light. Turrets gleam as perched falcons preen in the awakening breeze. Cobblestone streets wind like silver threads through rows of merchant stalls and ivy-clad manors, and beyond the city walls the Vale of Thorn stretches, fields and orchards laced together in a quilt of harvest splendour. Your companions gather at your side, Brenna's armour polished to a gentle sheen, Marga's cloak trimmed with ribbons in silver ditch blue, Arvid's satchel bulging with maps and sketches, Brother Kalen's prayer beads glinting like morning dew, and Thomas leaning on his repaired cart, reins coiled at ease. Each of you carries the weight of a season's work. Repaired granaries in Harrenwood, fortified jetties in Gullreach, patched toll houses along the causeway, illuminated manuscripts in Ravenscar, and healing hands extended in Rosevine. Below, the city stirs. Bakers' ovens breathe clouds of flower-scented steam, smithies ring with the melody of hammer on anvil, and merchants unroll bolts of cloth that catch the first sun like fields of wildflowers. The pulse of life here is both constant and renewing, proof that the realm's heart beats strongest when nurtured by care and collaboration. You raise a hand to shade your eyes and trace the roads you travelled, the silver ribbon of the river, the heather-clad marshlands, the cliffside paths of Gullreach, and the marbled halls of the scriptorium. Each landmark holds a memory. Children's lanterns drifting on midnight waters, musketeers' volleys beneath storm-lashed skies, the hush of candlelit chant in abbey corridors, the hush of parchment welcoming Quill's script. Brenna's voice is soft yet steady. We began at chaos's edge, she says, gaze drifting to the distant horizon where battle once raged, and forged peace with every timber we laid and every blade we steadied. Marga steps forward, voice warm as hearth-fire. And with each trade, be it capers or candles or ink, we wove trust into the realm's fabric. Every exchange was a stitch of hope. She gestures to the city below, where merchants and travelling folk mingle in bright cloaks. Arvid unfurls his latest sketch, a panoramic vista of the Vale, annotated with symbols of every village you aided. These are more than maps, he whispers. They're guides for those who follow, telling them where kindness was sown and where courage took root. His eyes dance with the light of dawn. Brother Kalen kneels, pressing a palm to the stone floor. He murmurs a benediction that drifts upward like incense. May this realm rest on foundations of compassion, and may its roads remain open to souls in need. His prayer lingers as the wind carries its resonance across towers and battlements. Thomas adjusts his hat, tipping it to you all. Every rope I tied, every cork I pressed, was with the thought of keeping people safe, he says, voice low but resolute. Today, the river's currents and the sea's tides carry that promise onward. You step to the edge, eyes tracing the path leading north to the capital's spired keep, where final challenges await, noble councils, trade negotiations, the weaving of alliances that will secure the realm's future. Yet for this moment, the city's warmth and the dawn's gentle light cradle your heart. Here, at Harrenhal's ramparts, you begin, voice carrying across the terrace. We stand not as isolated souls, but as threads woven in a tapestry stronger than any siege line. Our deeds, whether hammer strikes at dawn or healing salves at dusk, have shown that renewal is built one act at a time, by those who listen to the land's needs and answer with open hands. You pause, letting the sunrise's glow fill the space between stone and sky. Now, as we prepare for the next horizon, the capital's marble halls and beyond, we carry with us every lesson, every bond forged, and every promise fulfilled. A hush falls over the ramparts, broken only by the cry of a distant hawk, the flutter of pennons in the morning breeze, and then, in unison, you add the words that have guided you through every forge, every ward, every council, and every healing touch. 2 more journeys await around the bend. Don't miss them, subscribe, and ring that bell.